Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are live. It is Friday, May 22nd. Thank you all for being here today. We got to the end of the week once again, folks. It's been a long week, even though we are 1 week away from June, which is still kind of blowing my mind as we enter into the latter half of 2026. But we're here. It is indeed Friday. And very excited to be here. Got a lot of stuff that happened over the past 24 hours, a bunch of different earnings we got to talk about. We do have a new Fed chair who will be swearing in today, Mr. Kevin Warsh. So that's going to be important. And, you know, we're going to see ultimately how the market interprets what Kevin Warsh is going to do as the new Fed chair. You got the S&P 500 up in the pre-market. There is a macro headline for why we're green, and we are relatively green across the board. NVIDIA's up 0.5%. Take-Two, great earnings last night. That's up 5%. Workday up 6%. Zoom up 7%. Again, those companies had good earnings. ServiceNow up 2.7% into it after a 20% decline. That one getting a little bit of love. Apple hitting all-time highs, 306 in the pre-market. So you're seeing some of these names, SMH, Tesla, SoFi, Shopify, Spotify, etc., getting some momentum. Again, it is a Friday. You've got a lot of options expiring today, so we're going to see long-term, or at least, you know, throughout the rest of the day and then going into the next week, how any of this momentum plays out. But even if we were to fall 1 or 2 percentage points from the S&P by the end of May, sell in May, go away hasn't really happened. I know we have 1 week left and maybe 1 week changes everything, but sell in May, go away was not really the strategy. Now, we haven't beat the May 13th highs. Everything kind of topped out on May 13th. A lot of levels have not been achieved above that day. So we'll see today if we have a chance to get there or next week. But overall, been relatively bullish. Got some new updates on Iran and Trump, which I think the market is interpreting to be a bit more real. I know I say that every day, but oil is below 97. So, I mean, it's not above 100 anymore. It was above 100 for the past couple of weeks. So maybe the market is starting to get a little bit more okay with the idea that this war is going to come to an end eventually. And that is being reflected, obviously, in the stock market, which is what we are seeing right now. How about them Knicks, baby? Yes. How about them Knicks? Destroyed the Cavs, dude. We're going to get wrecked in the finals if we get there, but at least we'll get to the finals. We're going to get to the finals. And if we somehow win the championship this year, I mean, New York is going to be crazy this summer. New York will be absolutely crazy. But it was a good game last night. It was quick, too. I mean, it wasn't as competitive as the first one. The rant yesterday moved the market. Maybe the rant moved the market a little bit. Gas is still $4. I think the average is actually $4.65 now. So, yeah, there are obviously some bearish concerns that we've been talking about for a while, and you know they might end up becoming a bigger issue. The 10-year is down from 4.7. It was at 4.67 earlier this week. We're at 4.548. That's not good, but at least it's not going up. And you know, hopefully it continues to be on the path to the downside, because obviously that's going to be good for equities as well. Hopefully Cat Williams doesn't get hurt. Yes, that would be a good thing. All right, let's get into it. Good morning, good morning, good morning. In about, let's call it 20, 30 minutes, I am also going to be launching the new product that I mentioned yesterday. I did say on X I was going to be launching something, and people's imaginations have gone a bit wild. I said it's not a crypto coin, not an ETF, not my OnlyFans. Unfortunately, most people are still thinking it's an OnlyFans. I don't think that would be the correct career move, to be honest, but there is a lot of demand for it. I'm not going to lie, based on the comments on that. I don't know what to interpret from that, but we'll be launching it in about 30 minutes, and I think people will enjoy it. So your OnlyFans is later. Yes, eventually it'll become. It's a rant app. Exactly. All right, let's get into it. Good morning, everybody. Let's start off with the Iran news today, because this is the thing that I think is starting to pick up some of the headlines here, and that's why the market is at least moving. So here's what you got from the morning. A Pakistani source: U.S. and Iran's insistence on raising the ceiling of their demands regarding uranium in the Strait of Hormuz has led to the escalation of negotiations. Reducing gaps is not easy because both sides still have a high ceiling of demands. The knot of negotiations was and still is how to deal with uranium. America and Iran are sticking to their positions on uranium. The interim agreement between the United States and Iran guarantees an end to the war. The major issues in the agreement need a long period of time to negotiate. Basically, they're saying, hey, we have a deal. There's a lot of points in the deal that are not going to be negotiated overnight, but the framework of the deal is there. And the fact that we're getting to the point where both sides are at least ready to hear each other out even if there's a high ceiling of demands, means that more likely than not, the Strait of Hormuz will at least open, the war will stop, the blockade will get over with, and then we'll figure out all the ancillary concerns. Now, those ancillary concerns, if they have to do with uranium enrichment, obviously are really important because that's what President Trump got into the whole war for in the first place. But if that is something that Trump and the White House is willing to, wait months to be able to officially resolve, but still announce some type of a deal, then maybe there is a chance that the market obviously prices it in and, we get a bit more excited, which is why I think we're green pre-markets. Now, could it be a rug pull? Yes, because obviously there's a couple of corresponding concerns in regards to what's going on with oil, but 746 S&P, 749 is your all-time high. So we are not that far away to break through again. NVIDIA had an incredible earnings. I know the stock didn't move that much. NVIDIA barely up in the pre-market, but a lot of different semiconductor names at least got the demand forecast for the trajectory of their growth from the analyst perspective, which have upgraded a lot of these stocks. They've upgraded NVIDIA dramatically over the past couple of days, as set in stone because of NVIDIA's earnings. So if NVIDIA had a bad earnings, all these other semiconductor AI CapEx trades would also likely not be getting re-rated, but NVIDIA had a really good earnings. And so you've got that tailwind along with this idea that the war is coming to an end. Again, oil below 100. We haven't seen that basically in the past 2 weeks. It's been kind of stuck there. It like went below 100, came back up, went below, came back up. It's been about 2 days now where it's like legit below. And let's see how we open up at 9:30 and hopefully, it can stay below it throughout the entire day. But if that's the case, bulls are in control. And I think it's not going to be too easy when Jensen says demand is much higher than supply and compute constraints continue to affect a $5.5 trillion company, which means it's going to be affecting all the other smaller companies that are out there. All of the elements of the supply chain probably should catch a bid if that earnings growth continues. The big issue is inflation, which we talked about in the Fed Minutes last week, that Kevin Warsh, who will become the new Fed chair today, is going to have to deal with rising inflation. But if inflation goes down because, oil prices go down, then maybe it's not the biggest deal of the world. Rocket Lab, that stock in the pre-market up about 3.8%. You got 130.21. ASTS had a great day yesterday as well. 97 in the pre-market. That's up 1.5%. So all your space names starting to come back. They took a pretty ugly dip over the past couple of weeks, but have started to get a reversal. And I think it kind of started with Rocket Lab's earnings, to be honest. That kind of just set in stone how strong the execution has been. Luna right there also up 1.5% as well as that continues to go green. Chat says during a recession, he will turn to OnlyFans, that might end up having to happen. Yes, Rocket Lab did have a successful launch last night. Was that a Neutron launch last night? Also, they got a $90 million contract last night. That was like late last night that news came out. Yeah, 88th. No, it was Electron. It wasn't Neutron. It was Electron launch last night. And then they got another $90 million contract. 90 million. Let me get the exact wording on this. Awarded $90 million contract by the Space Force to design, manufacture, integrate, and operate 2 geostationary satellites hosting the Heimdall Space Domain Awareness payload produced by Rocket Lab Optical Systems. So you have some decent catalysts right there. Now, 90 million on an $80 billion company is not that big of a deal in the context of the financials, but the quality of revenue and the ability to get those deals is, I think, what the market cares more about, especially, given the SpaceX IPO is coming soon. And if Rocket Lab is a baby SpaceX, then they should be getting these deals. And so I think the market just sees them getting these deals as validation of that thesis versus like the actual financials of the deal, which is, how the market is valuing Rocket Lab. And, that makes a lot of sense to at least normalize these levels. I mean, I don't know how far it goes up from here at 130, but dude, it doesn't look like it's going below 100. And if it does, it's going to be a really ugly drawdown that I think would affect the macro. Like $100 would be a 30% drawdown from here. Like that's just not easy on a high beta growth stock. Or if it does happen, it's usually something else that's happening in the ecosystem if they've, failed to execute or if the macro goes down. So it's been about 2 weeks now holding 100 and not even holding 100, quite frankly, holding above 110. So it looks like they are in a decent scenario right now. Western Digital, that's down about 0.5%. You've got the quantum names that continue to move higher based on those $100 million announcements yesterday from the federal government. Rigetti right there, that's up 4%. D-Wave is up another 3.2%. It was up 33% yesterday. IONQ, that one is down 1.5%. It was up 12.2%. Then IBM, which got the $1 billion investment, that one is up 3.2%. Was up 12% yesterday. Is Tessie up? Tessie is up a bit as well, 421. Let's do the green or red pull here. I think it's kind of looking like it's a green Friday, to be honest. You got a lot of decent news in the context of Iran. You don't have any crazy macro I think we have to expect. Yeah, we have some options expiring today, but it's not a massive options expiring day. If the market just wants to chill out, you got Kevin Warsh coming in. That impact we will see over the next month. I don't think we'll see that today. Maybe that's going to be relatively okay across the board. Tesla right there, 421. In the pre-market, selling may go away. May is almost over. So, usually May is when there's supposed to be a downturn. Nokia up 3%, Robinhood up 1%, Palantir up 0.5%. So maybe it's selling June go away, but I don't know. If May was good, maybe June continues to be good as well. We were speaking of space. The White House is getting into the game of, making sure that the SpaceX IPO has a lot more interest. Here was the SpaceX president with Howard Lutnick talking about data centers in space.
Data centers should be in space. AI compute should be in space. Space power is free and cooling is free.
Can you sort of explain how that works?
So data centers in space or AI compute in space is basically taking a simplified satellite and basically putting more compute chips on them with a much larger solar array. We approached the FCC and we have a million satellites worth of AI compute constellation.
A million satellites?
A million satellites.
Does solar work amazingly in space?
Solar,
you don't have the atmosphere, you don't have the things in the way.
It's always sunny in space.
It just follows the sun all around and all around and all around.
That's correct.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Data
so
centers belong in space.
And it follows the sun.
That's exactly right.
All right, that's cool. We look forward to you getting it done.
Look, it's a hell of a story. Jensen talked about yesterday. There's no physical reason why we can't have data centers in space. The question is obviously how practical is it to happen? And as we've got the SpaceX IPO coming out, you're going to get a lot of people that get excited about the story. And, that story is going to be a very important story to ultimately justify how the market thinks of the valuation. We talked about the numbers yesterday. It's really, really, really hard to make sense of the numbers. But at the end of the day, this is an Elon company. I don't think the numbers are really guiding the decision-making process for this. In fact, based on some of the articles I've read, the IPO is going to be massively oversubscribed. There was this one guy on X who was like, I managed $300 million of client accounts on Schwab. And, I requested some SpaceX allocation and Schwab came back to them and they were like, dude, no, we really appreciate you have a lot of money with us on the platform, but we cannot guarantee that we can give you an allocation. And so, it's one of those things where there is so much demand for these shares, even though you've got a ton of people that are obviously dumping their shares into the private market or into the public markets that owned it privately. There's plenty of demand. More demand than expected, a lot more demand than expected for people that want those shares, which just means as a function of the price, if the price is a function of supply and demand outside of like any fundamentals or even quality of SpaceX, the company itself, the stock's probably going up. The question is going to be how long does it stay up? How much money comes into it? Where does the liquidity come from? What do people have to sell in order to get their SpaceX stock? And that's, I think, going to be the most exciting thing that we see once we end up officially getting their earnings. So that'll be important. June 12th, most likely, is when we get a lot more momentum on seeing this SpaceX IPO. Okay, so that was the update on SpaceX. A couple of other macro things that I want to look at, and then we'll get into a few other big stories. This I thought was incredibly interesting this morning. So South Korea is having such strong memory pricing power, Samsung and SK Hynix, they're actually exporting inflation. So Korea export prices for semis are up 148% year over year. DRAM is up 223% year over year, which means you're seeing some inflation across the world happen because of South Korea exporting these higher prices. Now, obviously, there's a lot of demand for these products and people are willing to pay a lot of money, which is why these companies have such high pricing power. But it's quite incredible that around the entire world, you're seeing a little bit more inflation just on memory pricing simply because of the amount of demand that exists for it. And that goes deeper into the broader tech bull market that we're seeing. So IT tech in the S&P has returned 225% since the bull market started. By comparison, industrials, consumer discretionary, and financials have risen 102, 76, and 70% across the bull market that we've seen right now. So really, it's been tech that's been leading a lot of this momentum from October 2022 to May of 2026. And that has been your bull market over the past 4 years. That is not slowing down and not really showing any signs of slowing down. And if it were to slow down, you would imagine something in the AI trade changes or you would have a macro hit. But as of now, you are not necessarily seeing that right now as tech continues to go up. Meta released a new app on iOS, did they? A forum app? Is that correct? Wow. Meta launches a Reddit competitor. Meta launches Forum, a new Reddit-like app for Facebook groups. Pinterest is probably down, right? Pinterest is down 3%. Reddit is down 3% as well. Interesting. Meta has quietly launched the new Facebook groups app called Forum. The app didn't get a formal launch, but it was in the App Store. The App Store description suggests Meta is building it as a rival to Reddit. Forum is a dedicated space for deeper discussions, real answers, and community you care about, the company says. I don't know if I like this. It feels like they're running out of ideas and they're just trying to come up with new social products, which is funny because Zuck's, if you really heard his interviews over the past couple of years, he's not a fan anymore of social media. Like the whole pivot of changing the name from Facebook to the metaverse was to be able to usher into a new technological era. The problem is the business is only relevant in the context of advertising, which requires social media and social engagement. Nonetheless, if they are able to take market share from a Reddit, which I don't think is going to be that easy to do, because if it's via Facebook, a lot of people don't even use Facebook. If it has Facebook, I mean, not that a lot of people don't use Facebook, but a lot of the people that use Reddit, one could argue they're not going to try to have those discussions on Facebook. There's a bit of an anti-Facebook narrative there. Also, I mean, if it's branded via Facebook, that in and of itself might make people less likely to try it out. Like a lot of people that use Threads don't even know that Facebook owns it, right? So it's a little bit distinct from it. That's kind of interesting. I mean, they're probably going to be able to grow it because they have all the users and monetize it. I wonder if that's going to be an actual game changer for them. Pinterest right there down 2%, Reddit down 2.4% as Meta launches that as well. They also launched Instagram Instants. I haven't tried that out, but that's it's not even a Snapchat clone. It is a Snapchat clone, but it's not about stories. It's about instant messaging with pictures that disappear. So I guess that's exactly Snapchat. But it's like built into Instagram and there's a separate app for it. I didn't use it, but I mean, I guess we're seeing more and more attempts at diversification on their business. Rock Lab right there up 3.8%, S&P up 0.5%, Nvidia up 0.49%. It sucks. It's pointless. I used it. It makes no sense. Similar to BeReal. BeReal got acquired, by the way, as well by a company in France. Maybe that's why Reddit's been down a bit, dude. Someone always knows because Reddit had a phenomenal earnings. Maybe there were some funds that knew over the past couple of months that like there's going to be a competitor coming out soon. And that might be some of the reason you've been seeing some of that pain. Some other macro stuff. Mark Cuban, he has officially sold all of his Bitcoin.
And this might get some people upset. I think Bitcoin has lost the plot. And when I started buying Bitcoin and I'd sold all of it, except not all of it, most of it, it was because when all the shit hit the fan with the Iran war and, Bitcoin was always the best alternative to fiat currency losing its value. And I always thought it was a better version of gold than gold. Well, gold just blew up and went, to $5,000, Bitcoin dropped. And every time the dollar dropped, Bitcoin should have gone up, because if it's priced in dollars, it was cheaper. So anybody from around the world could go pay in dollars, and it just didn't do that.
Not such a hedge.
No, it's not the hedge that I expected it to be. And that was really disappointing. And so I'd say I'm more disappointed in Bitcoin, not as disappointed in Ethereum, and the rest, the token stuff, the meme coins, garbage. And this might get some people upset.
I thought that was a little interesting. Cuban's been a big Bitcoin supporter for a while. And so for him to officially say, I thought it would be an inflation hedge, but I realized that it's a risk asset, which, I think a lot of people have been disappointed by the fact that Bitcoin ultimately is, a correspondent asset with the NASDAQ and tech stocks versus being an inflation hedge. Nonetheless, I still think long term, if we keep printing the way we're printing, eventually Bitcoin catches a bit. Now, the irony is Bitcoin needs a lot of liquidity. If we keep printing, we get more liquidity. So it does benefit from risk asset macro foundational elements, but it also theoretically with all that liquidity would be the hedge because you would want to protect your money from inflation. And that's where Bitcoin thrives. It's just, it needs a lot of liquidity to make that happen. And I think we will get that over the coming years, maybe not 2026 but in the context of rate cuts, unless oil comes down substantially. Then, if we get a rate cut on the table, it would be very, very exciting for all risk on assets, including Bitcoin. But Cuban's out. Cuban's officially out and he's not in. Hype is getting all the hype. So yes, that again, we've talked a lot about perpetual futures. I am super bullish on tokenization writ large. Hyperliquid is creating a vehement platform to allow the pricing of illiquid assets. And, that is getting a lot more attention as well. And that's kind of one of the newest coins that the market cares about. But it's also not really a new coin. It's been out for a while. It's up 80% in the past 6 months. It was dead for, a year and a half. And now you start to see a lot more excitement. And I really think it's because of the IPOs. People are trying to figure out, hey, how do I value or price the IPO before the IPO happens? And that's where Hyperliquid, via their perpetual derivatives, gets the street to be a bit more excited to even use it as a proxy. S&P 500 right there, up 0.52%. Speaking of IPOs and SpaceX, you had Tom Lee that came on yesterday saying, hey, I think the SpaceX IPO is actually going to be a massive boost of stimulus because you're going to have a lot of people that get a lot of rich off of it, and they're going to have a lot of more liquidity.
Tudor Jones was on a podcast recently where he said he knew the top was so easy to see in 99 because he knew there were all these IPOs out there that raised a ton of money, but then the lockups were actually also expiring, which happens, I think it's 90 days. So when SpaceX does its IPO, and it'll be one of the most anticipated IPOs in history and raise a huge amount of money, in 90 days, $2 trillion of SpaceX stock becomes freely tradable. And so you can imagine there's a lot of seed investors that are going to take actions to hedge their holdings. I think they said, the stat I saw was like 160 people in Austin, Texas, for instance, are going to make more than $100 million. Superficially, I would say the size of the IPOs coming, SpaceX, OpenAI, Anthropic, and then the supply release 90 days later is something that we have to mechanically think about how the market absorbs all that, because that's a lot of supply. I mean, let's say it's collectively 4 trillion. It's like 5, 6, 7% of the S&P 500. It's meaningful numbers of additional liquidity. But the one reason I'd say maybe it's not as bearish as it looks is that public stock allocations by high net worth individuals is at near record lows. Whether you look at family offices or pensions, they've all allocated into alternatives. This is guessing, but in the last 10 years, for every dollar that went into public markets, $9 probably went into alternatives. So there is probably more money that is under allocated to public stocks. And so I think that these IPOs, along with how well memory and AI stocks, a lot of the AI supply chain is publicly listed in Asia or US, is going to trigger reallocation back into public equities. So I think that there's turbulence, but ultimately all of this gets absorbed because one, there's finally some liquidity for some of the venture investors in SpaceX. But instead of those folks selling and maybe even triggering tax issues, I think they'll hedge or borrow. But I think future allocations are going to shift out of alternatives back into public equity.
Okay, if that's a little complicated for people, because I know he was saying a lot of words right there, basically saying a lot of VCs are going to get a lot of exit liquidity. And even if there are other people left holding the bag and SpaceX stock ends up going down from like, who knows, 2 trillion to maybe 1.3 trillion, there's going to be so much capital that is received in that moment of exit liquidity. It's like a wealth transfer from people who are holding the bag to people who were holding the bag 15 years ago when they bet on SpaceX, that they're going to have so much money that they can then use that money to then pump it back into the economy, either by buying stocks, potentially buying SpaceX again on the dip, or by buying other assets. It's kind of similar to the theory around stimulus. So Redwire right there, up 2.87%. And the theory of stimulus in the context of tax refunds. So there's $158 billion that's about to be returned to small businesses and large businesses across the entire country for tariffs, given the Supreme Court ruling. All that money is going to go back into the economy. Right? Like it is incredibly valuable for the broader economy to have 150 billion of liquidity get injected, whether through vendors, suppliers, people going out, buying more different things, that they're expanding their business, hiring more people. The only thing that it doesn't help is our debt, because that was Trump's goal, right? To use the money we get from tax refunds. It was going to be about $350 billion a year and pay down the debt. So we're not paying down the debt, which I don't know what that has to do for the 10-year, because theoretically that would have at least helped our 10-year kind of go down at this point. I don't know what's going to necessarily make the 10-year get re-rated other than oil coming down, but that money will go back into the economy. Like if you give business owners a lot of money, they're not just going to put that money in the bank. They're probably going to spend it to expand their business. So you do have a form of stimulus in the SpaceX IPO, given how large it is and people that will be taking profits and then using that money to put somewhere else. But you also have stimulus from the tariff refunds going back. And, maybe that's going to allow the market to see a little bit more momentum. Qatar has sent a negotiating team to Tehran in coordination with the U.S. to help secure a deal to end the war. Okay, so you got Qatar and Pakistan this morning basically trying to fully get involved and get to a type of deal. There was a big piece of news out of China this morning. China cannot stop from hurting their own stocks, unfortunately. China is investigating brokerages across the country, and basically those stocks are getting hit pretty bad. So 7 departments in China jointly issue an implementation for a comprehensive crackdown on illegal cross-border securities, futures, and fund business activities. So you had Tiger, Futu, all of them down 20 to 30% in the pre-market. Tiger was down 40%, Futu down 30%, as it was a lingering concern for companies operating in the gray area while giving mainland investors a way to invest overseas outside of the pure view of China's strict capital controls. Basically, China is saying, hey, there are certain ways that we want people to invest, that they shouldn't easily have access to be able to invest in all these different international markets. Obviously, the brokerages want more people to invest in anything they can because that's how they make money on trading volumes. And all those brokerages are down in the pre-market because of China. Like, imagine, the United States cracking down on Robinhood and being like, hey, we are fully investigating every single security that's on your platform because we think it's illegal that you're giving people access to this like Taiwanese company called TSMC, because it's one of those things that you wouldn't imagine happening as easily, but Robinhood probably would be down 40% on the day if that happened. Trump did also tweet this morning as well, and he tweeted that he is happy that the stock market is up. So this was an hour ago for those that missed it. New stock market record. I think he's talking about the Dow, because the S&P is not at a new record. The Dow is above 50, so I think he's right that above 50. Usually he's talking about the Dow whenever he puts this out. So there you go. Trump is excited for that. This is bullish for Robin in Singapore. It is, because you have a lot of these operators, Tiger and Futu, that operate in Singapore that, they're now being investigated. So honestly, it actually is super bullish for Robinhood going into Singapore. It's just a question of when they're going to go into that. We still don't know. Also, they announced they're having this London event for crypto in July, I believe. So we're likely going to see some new efforts either on tokenization or whatever other crypto products they have going into July. Here's another stat that I thought was really interesting. So this is from Goldman, and this was pretty wild. So if you take a look at this, Goldman's most shorted basket of stocks is up 67.3% over the past year, while the GS long short hedge fund proxy is down 27%. What is the conclusion from that? The conclusion is the best strategy this year has been to go long the lowest quality story stocks and short the highest quality businesses. And it kind of makes sense, right? Like Meta and Microsoft have been a short this year, whereas so many smaller names that you could argue don't have earnings or fundamentals or forget profits, they don't have revenues, those are stocks that are up. And correspondingly, if they've been shorted because those stocks have been up and the basket of the most shorted stocks have been up, the short squeeze on those stocks has also been pretty aggressive, which has been kind of incredible to see, because at the end of the day, that's how the market has ultimately shifted their capital, which obviously is scaring people for sure, because they're thinking that's a bit too euphoric. But that goes back to the earnings story that we're seeing right now. Kevin Warsh, he's live, or not Kevin Warsh, Kevin Hassett, talking about Kevin Warsh getting sworn in today. Here is what he had to say.
That he said.
You disagree with him?
I agreed with everything. I just agreed. The idea that the Fed has lost its way a little bit, that it's sort of lost track of its mission, it's doing DEI stuff and climate change and all that kind of stuff. And I think that he wants to restore Fed independence by returning to its roots. I was there at the Fed working when Alan Greenspan made sure that we were focused like a laser beam on monetary policy, on the dual mandate, and sort of shut up about everything else. And I think that Kevin's going to do a great job. He's going to really turn that institution around.
Life is funny, and the confluence of events that have come to pass for the last 6 months or 3 months.
Term oil shock, then that shouldn't affect long-run policy. The Fed should keep its eye on the horizon. But on the other hand, I think that the president feels like the Fed has lost its way. didn't become data dependent. Remember, gave a big cut right before the election to try to help Harris. And so I think that he trusts that Kevin will be data dependent.
But even Treasury Secretary Bessent said that this might not be the time where, and you saw the minutes from the last meeting, and some people on the Fed, it's not Kevin obviously, but some on the Fed said that even the easing language needs to be removed at this point, and that the next move most likely is a hike.
Well, I look forward to seeing how he manages it, but we respect the independence of the Fed, and right now we expect that it's independent again. And so maybe it's a good time for the NEC director to step back and stop thinking about every move on interest rates.
Let's talk about what's happening with interest rates independent of central banks at this point. I mean, if you're looking at the 30-year, the yield touched 5.2% this week. It's the highest since 2007, but it's not just here in the United States. If you look at UK gilts, the highest levels we've seen since 98, and the 30-year bond in Japan is at its highest level on record. There's something going on around the globe that might make it very difficult to cut rates.
Right. Well, there's an oil shock for sure. And when there's an oil shock, then there's a risk that it feeds through to core inflation and then expectations. And that's something that central banks around the world have to pay close attention to. But remember that the history of this thing is the reason why we always talk about core when we see the CPI release and not top line is that the best forecast of top line inflation in the future is core today. And the core has it moved just a little bit.
But
like the rounding, PP more.
Producer prices moved up more than anticipated too. And that's a precursor of what may be to come. And by the way, we were at inflation that was above target before you even had the Iran war.
Yeah, but it was headed in the right direction by quite a bit. And so I think that the difference between the core we've seen in the CPI and target is a little bit high. And I think that it's right for markets to be anxious. Well, if this thing continues for a long time, then the oil shock is persistent, and then it will continue to cascade in the crisis. But if President Trump's view is that we're very close to finding a resolution, and if that's true, one thing I'm seeing on the flip side is that the spot market for oil, people are actually kind of unwilling to buy oil at the spot market because it takes 2 months to get it to Australia, and by then the price might be down a lot. And so it's there are a lot of competing forces. But that's why we've got a person that we trust who's independent of the Fed now, who's going to look at all that data and I believe make the right choice.
Kevin Warsh will be sworn in today. It is going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next few meetings. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be cutting anytime soon, but you got a lot of whispers of a hike. Is he going to have to convince people in terms of the Fed governors to not do a hike to be able to let this inflation story kind of play out? Also, if we see the labor market kind of come down a bit, that's going to be deflationary. AI in general, we know that Kevin Warsh believes is deflationary. So it's going to be important. I don't think Trump put him on the Fed chair to hike rates. Maybe he didn't put him on there to immediately cut, but he definitely wants a cut that's going to be happening sooner than later. Okay, one more story before I officially launch the new thing that I was talking about today. We'll do that in about 2 minutes. Meta and Tesla. Meta is going to use $200 million of Tesla Megapack batteries to help power their AI data centers in Wyoming. This was actually an amazing story for Tesla yesterday, and it's been one of those stories that we've been missing for a while, like one of those big deals. Now, $200 million is not a massive deal, but with Meta, it's important because you see Meta signing all these deals with CoreWeave and Constellation Energy. It's nice for them to use Tesla. So it's another example of Tesla Energy becoming a critical infrastructure for the AI boom. The energy part of the business on Tesla did de-accelerate in the latest quarter after accelerating for the past 5 quarters. So you did have some people wondering what exactly happened and why is this growth slowing down if we're power constrained. But it looks like Enbridge and Meta will be building a 365 megawatt 200 megawatt storage solar project, and Enbridge expects to invest about $1.2 billion into the project. The other thing that's interesting about this is Enphase recently has had a massive run from basically 35 to 62. And I think the reason it's been running as well, has been based on the idea. I mean, there was a Goldman report that Enphase could become a data center play, but the idea that we need all types of energy, whether it's fuel cells, we've seen that with FCL, obviously Bloom Energy, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's natural gas, or whether it's solar panels, we're going to need more energy. And if we're going to need more energy, Bloom Energy, look at that, 4%. This thing was at 241 3 days ago, up at 320. Some people say, okay, 240 to 320, that's euphoric. It doesn't make sense. The valuation already is super extended. That's not reasonable. Other people say, no, this is the nature of this market. When you get these types of dips, you immediately buy in because if the curve is going up and to the right, highlighted by Jensen in regards to NVIDIA, then obviously all these different stocks are going to get a bid, even if they're pricing in their earnings growth before that earnings growth happens. The point is there will be that earnings growth. If anything, that there will be earnings growth that is expanded. Bloom just had a deal with Nebius as well, which was really bullish. And, that's why you're seeing these stocks get a bit of their more momentum. Yes, I don't think the Elon and Zuck's cage fight will be happening. Probably not. And yeah, maybe they're BFFs now. So if that doesn't happen, that'll be a good thing for them. All right, cool. So let's announce what I've been teasing for less than 24 hours. This is so funny. This is like usually when you launch something, you like really hype it up for like days and weeks and months and do all this promo. And well, I got the idea on Sunday. So I was like, all right, let's just launch. I was going to do it on Monday, but I forgot we have Memorial Day. So the market will be closed on Monday. The market will be closed on Monday. We will have a podcast that comes out on Monday. We will have another podcast on Basis Points coming out tonight. I'll be live for the market close. We'll drop it at 5 p.m. I think you guys will really enjoy the podcast. This is with a CEO that I think a lot of people care about. But we will not be live on Monday. Okay, so been working really hard on this. And, a lot of work behind the scenes. Very, very excited to officially put this out. I am happy to announce today I am launching my own crypto coin. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. It's not a coin. I know everyone wants a coin, but it's not a coin. In all seriousness, I'm very officially happy to be announcing a lot of work into this. My own ETF. So I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We're not launching an ETF. We're not doing that. I don't need you guys buying the ETF. And when it goes down 2% every day, you're looking to cut my head off. We're not doing the ETF route. Not doing the ETF. In all seriousness. Okay. In all seriousness. I've actually been really working hard on this. Like I'm trying not to hype it up too much, but really, really have been working hard on this. I'm very, very honored and privileged to announce I'm officially launching an OnlyFans. Okay. No, I'm just okay. All right. No more. We're gonna do it. We're officially gonna do it. We're gonna do it. Okay. Here's what we're actually launching. Here's what we're really doing. So a lot of you guys have been asking for this over the past couple of months, and I've noticed a lot of people that have been asking for this. And so I kind of got the idea randomly Saturday, Sunday night kind of came to my head, and I was like, you know what? Let's officially do it. Let's make it happen. A lot of people have been saying, Amit, how do you get the news? How do you get the content? How do you get these second-by-second updates? How do you put all this information out there? How does it happen so easily for you? Where are you getting your news from? And as you guys know, there is a guy named Cactus in the chat, Cactus Jack, who has basically 2 years ago, I think this was, or maybe this was like mid 2024, he was in the chat and he started like putting these second-by-second updates every single day into the chat. And I didn't even know who he was. I just saw his comments and I was like, oh, that's helpful news because that's going to help me do what I need to do. And so I started relying on it. And late last year, we formalized the relationship and I started paying him every month. And I was like, yeah, you should just send me a private feed of news because that'll help me get through the stream, get everything I need to get done. And the fact that you were doing it for free for almost a year and a half was just like unbelievable to me because it's incredibly valuable. It helps me make decisions, helps me get through the stream. And quite frankly, I can't even live without it. So what are we doing? Officially, people have been asking for this for a long time and it is finally here. We are open sourcing Cactus Jack to everybody. So everyone will be able to have access to Cactus Jack. Now, a couple things on this before I put out the link. Number one, Cactus is a real person. He is not an AI bot. So all the updates you're going to be getting are going to be happening through a real person that is curating the news every single day. And one of the reasons I think this is going to be one of the best curated feeds that's out there, quite frankly, is because a lot of these news accounts on Twitter and different, profiles and Benzinga and CNBC, a lot of them just spam useless headlines, or a lot of them are using algorithmic feeds to just get the headlines in. Cactus is working 12 hours a day. Literally, this is the only thing he does. He finds relevant news, relevant content, puts it in a feed, and gets it to you in the most timely manner. I mean, if you are wondering what's happening, why is this stock up or down, why is the market going left or right, you will be able to check this feed, and Cactus will be able to give you all the information. Number two, and I'm just going to be honest with you guys and be a bit vulnerable here, but this is part of the reason why I wanted to formalize the relationship with him back in December, and it's also part of the reason why we're officially launching this. So Cactus has had a rough 7-8 years. He has had testicular cancer. He has had stomach cancer. He has had thyroid issues. He lost his job as a salesperson because of a hand trimmer, because his spine was thinning out. And so really, he found a lot of joy in being in the chat in the midst of just a lot of shit that no human should have to deal with, compounded on top of each other, by sending the news updates. And he has not once asked me for a single thing. I mean, he, quite frankly, didn't even ask me for money. I was the one who was like, dude, I should be paying you for this. This is important. And he's not once ever asked me for anything since that. So the cost of this product will be completely free. It will be completely free for everyone. However, there is a $5 tier per month if you want to support. There is the link right there. It is completely free. It will always be free. You guys know my brand. I don't charge for stuff. I don't do sponsors. I don't do any of that stuff. It is completely free. It will always be free. Anyone will be allowed to join forever in perpetuity to the feed. But if you would like to support the feed for $60 a year, I think it will be one of the best sources of alpha you can ever find in the context of news. And remember, it is not an AI bot. He's not using anything to AI generate any of the information. He is himself manually finding all the news every single day. He's been doing this for me. He's taken one day off in 8 months. And the one day he took off, I was like losing my mind. But he took off because he had a doctor's appointment. One day he's taken off in 8 months. He's never asked for anything. He's one of the nicest guys in the world. He's had some health issues, but you know, he deserves to get paid for doing what he loves, and I'm happy to try to support him. So it's $5 a month. If you want to support the feed will be free. We are syndicating through WhatsApp. Okay. If there is demand, we will eventually syndicate through Telegram. Or some other, you know, websites that are out there. But I think WhatsApp is the easiest because everyone has WhatsApp. The link is right there. I will pin it in the chat as well. CactusJack.com. It is not a Discord. It's not an app. It's not anything you're going to have to download other than literally just like clicking that button right there, access feed, and then boom, you should be able to get there for free. And there it is. I think this is going to be really cool. I'm excited to build this because, quite frankly, I think this is one of those things that could scale to hundreds of thousands of people. And so for someone who obviously builds and does content and, you know, media, I think it's like a really cool asset to build. Number two, I think you guys are really going to see the value of this feed. And like, I would just sign up, see what it feels like, mute the notifications because you're going to get a lot of notifications. So mute the unless you really want to see the notifications, but keep the feed open on a separate screen. If you go to WhatsApp, click on channels, it'll be on that side. On your phone, you click on channels, you get all the updates. And yeah, I think people will really, really freaking enjoy this. You guys will have the best access to news that I've been getting to enjoy for the past 8 months. And obviously, I know I bring the news to everyone through the stream and bring analysis and all that stuff, but the actual raw updates themselves, you know, it's hard to find really good curated feeds with someone who knows what the hell they're doing to get you the information right away. And so that is officially out. So there it is, cactusjack.com. You can sign up, join right there. If you want to support, you can pay $5 a month. If you don't want to support, that is totally fine as well. He is happy to do this for everyone. And yeah, you guys will be able to start using it every single day. 9:30 a.m. Friday, May 22nd, the stock market is now open. All right, let's get into it and see what we got. Corning, that is up 1% as we get into the market open. The S&P 500, 746, that's up 0.44%. 749.50 is what we've got to break. 749.53 to be exact to get to an all-time high. Let's see if we can get there. Your quantum names, they are green. Rigetti's, that's up 5%. D-Wave, that's up 2%. Rocket Lab, wow. They literally diluted at this price. And now this price is being taken over. They got a $90 million contract last night, 135.28 on Rocket Lab, up another 8% on the day. I mean, if we get that SpaceX IPO and that ends up being $2 trillion, who knows where Rocket Lab and ASTS are going. Is ASTS following at 100? ASTS, there it is. We're back at 100. From 85 to 64, now back to 100. Space Mob, what's up? There it is, $100 for Mr. ASTS. That's up about 4% on the day. Tesla, 424, that's up 2%. You got D-Wave, that's up 5%. Rock Lab, 135. Apple, dude, Apple 250 to 307 in basically a month. Didn't even have WWDC yet. I mean, I know their demand is off the chart, but the market is just saying, hey, we believe Apple's going to win. And you're seeing this momentum in the country. Wow, 308, 4.53 trillion on Apple. I mean, yeah, the multiple's up there, but it's like the street really doesn't care right here because they know that they're supply constrained, not demand constrained. And obviously, if they get any agentic Siri angle, that's going to be a big tailwind. That's probably not priced in yet. Nokia, that's up 2.89%. Robinhood, that's up 1%. Walmart, that was down 7%. That is flat on the day. Where is Micron? That is red. AMD, are we hitting all-time highs? We are hitting all-time highs. There was a report today by Goldman about UBS on CPU TAM. I think that's what's doing it, folks. That CPU TAM was increased to a couple $100 billion by 2030. Obviously, Jensen's arguments about Vera and how much demand there's going to be for their CPUs. I mean, ARM should be probably at 300, right? ARM 291. It got to almost 300 in the pre-market. ARM right there now at 292. AMD 478. This thing was at 395 2 days ago. It was at 395 literally 2 days ago. There you go. AMD 479 as that continues to go green. Bloom right there, that's up 3.2%. Palantir 137, that's up 1%. You got Meta at 612, Tesla 423, that's breaking out. IBM 3.94. Intel should be up if AMD is up. Intel is also up 120 from 102 to 120 on AMD or on Intel, and AMD from 395 to 477. This market rewards buying the dip. This market rewards buying the dip. S&P 500 right there, 747. We got $2 away. ASTS at 101. Amit, do you have ASTS? Yes. I bought it 84. Bought 1,000 shares. Posted it publicly on X. Was bag holding when it went to 65. And honestly, I bought it before the freaking launch with Blue Origin. And my plan was to sell it on the successful launch. It was going to be a trade. Ended up becoming a community member, and now it's back to being a profitable community member. And now I'm kind of just like, you know what? Rocket Lab was my SpaceX exposure. Now ASTS is also my SpaceX exposure. So I'm in. I don't love the valuation on ASTS. You guys know I never love the valuation on ASTS, but I do think the SpaceX trade makes sense. And, now if it were to fall back to 85, that would be a 15% decline from here, which theoretically would be a larger dip. So space trade seems to be working out so far. The only other trade that's done as well as, or that's even gotten close to doing as well as semis is freaking the space trade so far. It's really been space and semis that have led the way. And then obviously quantum in the past couple of days, given how much momentum you've seen with the quantum stock. ServiceNow 102, that's up 2.84%. Lunar and Redwire should be up. Dude, Lunar's up 7. Even Redwire's dilution didn't matter. This thing was $11 last week. It was $11 last week, which is absolutely incredible. And you're seeing this thing now to 1645. For all the people sending super chats for Cactus, I deeply, deeply appreciate it. I would just please ask if you could sign up on the link on the website. You can support him right through there. A lot of people are sending 60, 50 bucks. You can just get a monthly payment for $5. That would be a lot easier than giving me the super chat on YouTube. So please make sure if you want to send anything to support, it's a very quick Stripe link. It'll take less than a minute to sign up for the $5 a month. And that should be able to help support him. But thank you, everybody, for the super chats. Let's get through the market open, and then I'll get into all the super chats as we get towards the end of the show. S&P 747, Bloom Energy 313. That's down from 319. EOSC, that's at 830. T1 Energy, that is at 813. So this is down 7. This was up 9. The link is pinned for those that are asking. ASTS at 101. Palantir just flipped red, now is green. Slightly green, but it is green. Poet's down. Spotify, basically a 17% move from last night after they increased guidance. I don't know if increasing guidance was that relevant for Spotify getting this big of a move, but nonetheless, it is. Qualcomm, look at that, 223. This was at 200 last night. So you got Qualcomm making a move as well. Spotify making a move. Grab's up a little bit. SoFi's up a little bit. Oklo got initiated by Bank of America to $80. So remember when Oklo was at $200 last year, and a lot of people were like, this is ridiculous. Yeah, it was ridiculous, and it corrected pretty aggressively down to the 40s. But now you've got the institutional guys coming in saying, wait a second, if we are this power constrained, we are going to need nuclear. Now, maybe nuclear is far away from it happening, but we're going to need it. And the fact that Bank of America came out today and said, yeah, we think Oklo should go to $80 because they're a pure play nuclear reactor to get exposure to the AI trade from an energy perspective on nuclear. Nokia almost about to hit 1493 right there. I mean, you're just seeing the institutional side say, we need exposure. And they're looking for anything to get exposure. And Oklo is one of the names, along with SMR, that pops up. SanDisk right there, that's down 2%. Your memory names are red. Your memory names are red. They're trying to flip green. Intel right there, 119. But overall, still green on the day. Justin Goodwill, thank you for the $100 super chat for Cactus Jack, 2x cancer survivor as well. Myself, get this to Cactus for me. Good luck today, everyone. I will absolutely make sure that gets to Cactus. Thank you, Justin, for the super chat. Yeah, I mean, look, I knew he had some health issues, but I didn't know it was as aggressive as it was. And so, you know, when you learn a little bit more deeper about what someone's struggling with, and the real thing about it is he never asked me for anything, even with all the health issues, you know? And so you just have a lot of respect for people that are incredibly prideful and never want to take the easy way out, never want to ask for anything. But you also know that sometimes people need a helping hand. So really, really happy that we're launching this, and I think a lot of people will enjoy what we're getting from the feed. If you're looking at the feed right now, Caitlin, our girl from the New York Post, just posted, Pakistani field marshal is headed to Tehran on Friday, and the most significant indicator so far that this week that progress is being made with a potential U.S.-Iran agreement. All right, so it looks like the Pakistanis are getting more excited about potentially getting this deal done. Derek, thank you for the gifted 50. Appreciate you, brother. I know a lot of guys have been asking where Derek is, and he's been a bit busy. He will eventually come on and tell his story, but he's been a bit busy for the past few weeks. And so deeply, deeply appreciate you, Derek. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the gifted 50 memberships. 50 of you guys got a membership to the channel, courtesy of Mr. Derek Wall. Derek also is the person who got me into Figure at a $2 billion valuation. So, you know, kind of changed my life a little bit. So I've been texting him every single day since these Figure videos have been going viral. And I was like, dude, I love you so much. But thank you, Derek. Appreciate you. And thank you for being here. ServiceNow 104. Okay, so interesting. You got SMH that's green and IGV is green. Semis and software are green today. Can we really believe that? Is that actually happening? Is that a joke or is that legit? Semis and software are even Meta's green today. Is Microsoft green? Huh. So Meta, Microsoft, SoFi, FinTech's going green, software's going green, the semis are still green, Palantir just went green, Corning red a little bit, so your memory and your photonics plays are red. Reddit obviously getting hit because Meta's launching a competitor to Reddit. For those that didn't hear the news, Reddit right there, 143.50. Apple 308 feels a little aggressive, but I think a lot of money is rotating into Apple, but it's not really rotating because you're not seeing a lot of stuff go red that's fleeing into Apple. I don't think people are fleeing out of T1 Energy to buy Apple. So it feels like kind of there's net new money coming into this, into the ecosystem right there. XLF also, you got some of these financials going green. I kind of like this. This is the first day in 2 weeks we've actually seen every sector start to participate. Nvidia's green, Intuit's green today. Workday had a great earnings yesterday, 8%. Now the stock was also down 50% year to date, so they had nowhere to go but up. You could have said that about Intuit, and they went down another 20%, but still, you know, Workday's not as big as Intuit. That stock up 8%. Zoom also up 15%. Zoom, I think, is more so because of the Anthropic stuff. They had a good earnings, but I don't know if the earnings was enough for that. Seems like Anthropic was a bigger reason. Nebius, that is up half. CoreWeave is up 1. And then where's Iran, which was up 5% yesterday? Iran is flat. APLD is red, but APLD also had a 20% day yesterday, so can't be too upset about that. Dell got upgraded to like 270 from some target on the streets. I forgot the name of the bank, but 280 right there on Dell. That's up 11%. Again, you had Trump pump Dell the other week. You had Jensen obviously talk very nicely about Dell. So, I mean, you are getting a lot more excitement for Dell. Nokia, are we above 15? We are above 15. This is actually interesting to me because some of your optics plays and your memory names are down. Now, they're about to flip green. But the fact that a Nokia, which usually trades with more of those names, is flipping green means the market's being a little bit more selective with giving some of the smaller names some love versus just like the algos taking everything up or everything down, which I think is healthy. Otherwise, you would see Corning be green right now as well, even though it's up a lot from the lows of last week. But this is not horrible. Quantum continues. D-Wave up 9. Rigetti, that is up 12. BlackBerry, is that above 7? BlackBerry, wow, that's above 7. Okay, there's your breakout on BlackBerry. It's been a minute. It's been a minute. People have been waiting on this one for a while. 718. This thing was stuck at 3 for how long? A year? Basically a year. 719, 8% right there. Again, small float, 583 million shares. Not that small, but market cap also relatively small, 4.2 billion. They do have an NVIDIA partnership that doesn't get talked about a lot, but that's up 8% as that's going green. DRAM, is that flipping green? DRAM is still red. It is confusing why the memory names are red today. That is very confusing. You would think they would flip. I mean, they've had a good week though. So maybe the market's just giving some love to some of the other names. Intel, that's up 1. Redwire, that's up 9. ARM, red, but that had a massive day last week. SMCI also had a really good week. SMCI, that's up another 3% right there. That's basically back to where it was before earnings. Redwire, she's running. She's got momentum. 17 on Mr. Redwire. Pakistani Foreign Ministry comes out and says, we're not aware of any visit to Iran planned by the army chief. The Pakistani army chief is on his way to Tehran. Okay, so you have conflicting sources on if the Pakistanis actually are working with the Iranians, and we don't officially know yet. BlackBerry 719, Nokia 1507. It's so funny, right? BlackBerry, Nokia, these names from the dot-com bubble, these like legacy cell phone companies. I mean, if you look at their base, dude, they've been stuck for like 15 years in a base, and now they're starting to break out, which is just incredible to see. Shopify 107. Shopify was 94 on Monday. It's a very high quality company. Valuation is up there. You've got some bigger guys going into it, but it was down from 150. So maybe enough was enough. Zeta, that's up 4%. Rackspace is down 1.5. ASTS again at 101.44. As that continues to go green as well. Lemonade, are we green? Lemonade, that is also up. Dude, it's a pretty green Friday. It looks like everything. It looked OSS, this hit almost 17 yesterday. That is officially 17 today, 17.50 on this one. Again, this one, $9-10 back in January. You've seen a pretty substantial move from there. So your smaller names getting some love. Your Nokias, your BlackBerries getting some love. Your NeoClouds not getting some love today, but they've had a really good week, like Nebius, 185 to 230, down to 218. Can't be too upset about that. Apple, just literally going off to the moon right here, 307. Where's the Googs? The Googs is at 384. Google goes down even after the I.O. event. So you've got that one going a bit red, and then Meta going the opposite. That's going green. Wow, Bloom Energy, another 5% or 3% right there, 317. AAOI, another photonics play, is down. By the way, there's going to be a photonics ETF coming out, just like DRAM. It's going to be called LYTE, and that's going to have all your photonics exposure. So if you don't want to pick a photonics name, just like if you don't want to pick a memory name, then you could. I don't think it's out yet, but it'll be out soon. All right, so photonics and memory go red today. Interesting. This is actually kind of confusing how the market's diversifying their capital here. Usually if your semis go up, your picks and shovels go up, those two should be up a lot today, and they're struggling to even get to 1%. But your SoFi's up, your Robinhood's up, your fintech names are up. Is Affirm up? Affirm is up. Coin is up. Your space names, your fintech, and your software names, at least for now, are getting some more love. 94.58 on IGV. That's up 2.48%. ELF is also up. So consumer discretionary, retail, you're getting a lot of these sectors that they just kind of sucked the past few weeks. They're going green. Adobe 249, Salesforce 183 as well. Someone just sold $2 million worth of puts on Nokia for $16 strike. So those are OTM puts, which means it's pretty bullish. They think it's going to get above 16 by July 17th, 2026. So you got 2-month $16 puts. Someone just sold 2 million of those on Nokia. Marvell 194. That one continues to go green. Take Two is red. That was up. They said Grand Theft Auto November 19th. I am not a video game guy, but I would imagine that's going to be pretty damn bullish for their 2027. So that is weird that one flipped red. They also, well, no, they did miss out. The street wanted $9 billion. They came in at $8 billion for full year 2026 guidance. So, but the street kind of ignored it last night when the stock was up, but maybe that's a reason why it's down. VRT, that's down 2.3. That's down 2.3. Admit you have to play Drake's Nokia song whenever you sell Nokia, you know? We might have to do that. We might have to. A lot of people have been asking for the target. I'm just looking at the option flow. I have not done the financial valuation analysis, like a DCF model or anything to get to 25. I did a little bit of financial work on the Substack I did on Nokia, but it was kind of surface level, trying to just understand pure multiples, not necessarily a valuation model. But I think 25 is what the option flow is suggesting based on where the call flow is going to by January 2027. So people are expecting this thing to almost double by next year. Again, there's a lot of execution that Nokia is going to have to do to get there. It's not going to be easy. The stock has already been up a lot this year, right? So for a lot of these names, for them to get that extra 40, 50, 70% move, they're going to have to move higher. Same thing with AMD, right? For this thing to get anywhere near the 550s, 560s, it's just going to be a lot more earnings growth that they're going to have to show. But obviously, it's in the good graces with the street. 467 right there. Every dip so far has been bought pretty nicely. What price did you get Nokia? 1398. 1398. Yeah, Jason's basically is around the 25, 28 range as well. The chart looks really good. The chart definitely looks really good. We went over it on Tuesday, but I'm always more fundamentals than charts, and the fundamentals are good. I just don't know how good they need to be for the street to be like, yep, we're going to re-rate it like we've re-rated so many other stocks. But this is the market environment where, if you've only been in names that have been crazily re-rated, you've just had a massive move. If you've had a little bit of exposure to that, you've seen a move. And then if you've been in names that you think would get re-rated, but then don't get re-rated, you've lost a lot of money. So to an extent, you just have to be very selective about it. Estee Lauder, that's up 11% today. So they were going to be merging with PUIG, and the merger talks ended yesterday. So they will not be merging with PUIG anymore, which is a global company in the premium beauty industry. So Estee Lauder, which Kevin Warsh is the husband of the daughter-in-law of the owner of Estee Lauder. So his net worth today, as proxy of being married to her, is up by 11%. So he's going to become the new Fed chair, and he's probably up a couple $100 million today, so he should be happy. ANET, Arista, that's up 2% as well. Navitas, are we green on that? Navitas is 9% green. That's a new all-time high for Navitas. Again, these smaller names just making a hell of a move. NVIDIA, unfortunately, wow. What a weird Friday. Memory and photonics down, NVIDIA down, all the other semis, literally all of them, or at least 90% of them going green, fintech going green, software going green, Meta going green. And then the neoclouds go red. It's just a bit of a weird Friday when you look at the way the street is allocating capital today. Palantir 138, S&P 747. 747 right here. Nebius is selling off as well. Yeah, all the neoclouds getting hit, 217. But again, this one was below 200. So it's not too crazy. ELF is up 4. ELF is up 4. We do have a 3-day weekend. That is true. That is true. So maybe the street a little nervous in certain sectors for that. Palo Alto and the cybersecurity names have just been absolutely incredible. Chris made a good point last night. Look at CrowdStrike, 671. Okay, I don't love the valuation on a CrowdStrike at 670. Palo Alto is a bit more reasonable to understand, but I don't think valuation matters for the cybersecurity names because Mythos came out and basically showed how much more security is going to be needed, and I think that's why you're seeing that get priced in. Now, CrowdStrike's not been doing the best job at growing ARR, and so this Mythos thing better actually inflect in their numbers, because we've seen some software stocks that inflected in their numbers and still couldn't catch a bid, like Palantir, AppLovin, Reddit, etc. So the cybersecurity names, which haven't really had massive growth in like the past 3 years, like they're stuck at like Palo Alto's at 15, CrowdStrike's at like 22. You're not seeing 40, 50% crazy growth rates. So if that starts to happen, maybe these stocks go crazy from here. But what's interesting about what Chris said last night is that some of these software names in a certain sector have been re-rated based on their adjacency to AI. And so cybersecurity, based on the whole Mythos stuff, has been re-rated. And Fortinet had that monster earnings last week or 2 weeks ago, and that kind of started the buzz as well, which you would imagine CrowdStrike and Palo Alto are going to have good earnings because of that. When does that happen for ServiceNow and Salesforce, right? When does ServiceNow and Salesforce adjacency to software layer applications on top of LLM start to get the street to realize, oh, these names are not dead, they're going to get value? Maybe it happens over the coming months, but it has already happened for cybersecurity, which is why those names are having a massive bid. Is Reddit still down? Reddit, wow, 144. I think Reddit's cheap here. I need to do some more work on what exactly the street's so upset about, but that after that earnings, this thing peaked at 175. For it to be down here is pretty incredible. AppLovin 491. That's below 500. Rubric, that stock has been getting a little bit more of a bid. This was 85 in January, so it's still down from its highs. But over the past month, it's up 20%. So it's up from the 40 lows. What happened to Futu? So China's cracking down on Chinese brokerages that are allowing people to buy international stocks. And that's why Moomoo and Futu and all those companies are getting hit. That's why they're red today. Dell right there, 284. That is up 12.4%. Metaforum is awesome. I'm going to download the app today and play with it. I mean, if they're legit making a real Reddit competitor, then it would be quite incredible to see kind of what that looks like. ASTS 102.44, that's up 7%. Mitt, do you have Nokia? Yes. Wrote a Substack on it. I will link it here again. The Substack was trying to get an indication of what it looks like. I will spend some more time going even deeper into this one. A couple of energy names I'm looking at as well over the weekend. Probably will have a Substack on them next week. And so we're going to see. But again, it's kind of confusing to me. These smaller names that are running today, you should see the memory names and the photonics names running as well. They're not. So we're getting real divergence here. Even Snowflake up 3.5%. Credo up 3.74%. Lumentum, that's down. Baba, that's down. Costco, Walmart, that's down. Bitcoin ETF is down. Circle, that's flat. Adobe, that's up 1.3%. So you're starting to see the market kind of pick winners and losers versus the market just like immediately giving all the names in a certain sector its love. Robot strategy ETF, that's down 12%. This thing basically goes up or down 15% every other day. Iran, that is still down. Is anyone buying Dell? Trump pumped it last Friday or 2 Fridays ago. Yeah, 260. That's when he on that conference he was like, go out and buy a Dell. Right? Yeah, that was around May. Yeah, that was around May 8th. Fell to 227. Then you had the Jensen conference 2 days ago. Stock didn't do much. Now it's at 285. I mean, like Dell has horrible margins. They've always had horrible margins, but the volume of growth they're seeing is just unbelievable. They beat earnings or beat revenue last time by $17 billion, which is just crazy to think of. And you would imagine if NVIDIA is growing so much, even though we're not going to buy NVIDIA stock, because why would we? Because it's NVIDIA. Who cares about NVIDIA? We're going to buy Dell, even though NVIDIA has like 1,000x better margins than Dell. It's just, it's this allocation of capital argument, whereas it's hard to move a $5 trillion company. Dell at 180 billion is easier to move. It's just easier to move right here. Sammy says, I just sold my Dell. A couple of people saying about the dip on it. HPE 3621, that's up 6.71%. Norway's 2.3 trillion wealth fund expressed dissatisfaction with the reappointment of John Elkann, chairman of Stellantis and chief executive investor of Exor, on the board of directors at Meta. The Norwegians, aka, let me translate what that means. The Norwegians are saying, Meta, we are tired of bag holding this shit. Like, get your shit together. That's what they're saying. Because we have too much money. Can we find out how much money they have? How much Meta does the Norwegian wealth fund own? It's got to be a couple $100 billion. It's got to be, oh my gosh, they own, wow, 195.6 billion in Meta. Yeah, they are probably annoyed at this stock performance. 610.73. That's up 0.5% right there. Zuck's probably annoyed as well, which is why he fired a bunch of people. He's trying to launch all these new initiatives, but so far the street is not fully happy about that. I believe that's about 1% of Meta. They own 1.17% of Meta. Goodness, that is a decent amount of this. Redwire, wow, 14%. Was there a headline on Redwire, or is this just tailing Rocket Lab at 135? We had 2 headlines on Rocket Lab last night: Electron launch and then the $90 million Space Force contract. Is BB still moving? BB 723, that's up 8.63%. Okay, so Nokia, BlackBerry, Redwire are your movers today. IGV up 1.9%. You know, BlackBerry does actually look interesting. And going back to what Jason said on Tuesday, you don't have to get the bottom on these high runners that are re-rating, right? So like, yeah, you might not have got it at 3, 4, 5, or 6, but if it is showing real definitive strength of a breakout, you don't need to be obsessed with getting it at $3 and making a double from 3 to 7 when there's a lot more risk. You can go from 7 to 11 and have a lot less risk because now you know the chart is primed to break out. You're going to make less money, but you're also going to have a lot less risk. And so this is one chart to kind of keep an eye on and see if there's actually strength. Because, you know, BlackBerry has broken out a couple times this year, then fell back down and then consolidated. Maybe this actually is the moment it takes off. But I don't see a headline on BlackBerry either. So it's kind of the market deciding to just get a bit more excited about these smaller names. Apple 308, ASTS, wow. Space Mob. Redwire secures multi-year drone mega contract with NATO ally, receives $15 million follow-on order from the U.S. Army. Okay, so that's your headline for Redwire. Multi-year drone contract with a NATO ally and 15 million follow-on order. Amid open sourcing Cactus shows how you always put the community first. Really excited to get these updates and monitor the situation. I appreciate it. And the only reason I know that Redwire got a 15 million order on is because I have Cactus Jack open. So it really is helpful. I think people will enjoy it. Again, pinned in the chat. And anyone can sign up for it right there. Keel, that's up 3% on the day. Rocklab 135.50. Credo 200. Circle at 1.4. Adobe. That is up 1%. Did you guys say that Jeremy sold Adobe? Is that accurate? Is he officially out of it? Because I don't think that's a bad sell, to be honest, especially if he's allocating the capital somewhere else. I know that he likes ServiceNow. ServiceNow 102.50. I also think ServiceNow has a lot more potential than Adobe just based on the growth rate. Yes, it's true. Okay, look, it is what it is. It is what it is. This is the nature of investing. People make decisions and people cut losers and transition into different names. I would imagine he still believes the Adobe thesis is intact. It's just, well, why did he sell? Someone tell me why he sold. Took a 30K loss. Okay, for Jeremy, that's honestly nothing. 30,000 is not something he's going to be too worried about. But he probably just saw a better opportunity somewhere else. Tesla, we are at 421. He said it's another PayPal. Interesting. You know, I don't know Adobe as well as he does, but obviously the price action would make it conducive to a PayPal. But besides the price action, PayPal actually had a legit problem, not only with growth, but with management. I mean, Adobe did just get rid of their 18-year CEO, so maybe that ticked him off. Definitely ticked off the street that, you know, this guy who's been on the front edge of all the amazing Adobe products and you should think he should be excited for the AI revolution is now leaving, right? Like that would get anyone a little upset. And, you know, same thing happened with the PayPal CEO who ended up getting kicked out. So maybe you do have that similarity there as well. Adobe 245.80. Yeah, and I don't think he cares too much about that when AMD continues to do what he's doing. But here's the thing. I don't think he's buying AMD here, right? I know Jeremy's style a bit. He's not going to increase his cost basis from like $100 on AMD to buy it at force. You know, he did all the heavy buying when no one cared about it. So, and that's the way to do it, right? You don't need to chase it because you bought it when no one cared. You had conviction when people didn't care. So from that perspective, I would imagine that money's going to be going to something else that he just has more conviction in. SPY 746, Enphase 6340. Enphase continuing to make its move. Poet, that's up 1%. Amcor, that's up a little bit. And then Shopify 105.80. Can you get Jeremy on basis points? I've said if he's ever in New York, he is welcome on the show. So if he's ever in New York, we would love to have him on. It would be fun. I've met him in Vegas multiple times when I was out there, but it would be really cool to have him in the studio. ServiceNow 103, Tesla 421. Which semis are down besides Micron and NVIDIA? Nothing. Literally, it's Micron and NVIDIA. Micron down 1.2, NVIDIA down at a 1. Intel on, ASML, Broadcom, ASML up 3%, Qualcomm up 7%, as that's making a bigger move. Kratos, are we going up? Kratos is going up. Dude, Rocket Lab has a date with 150, right? I think Rocket Lab has a date with 150. Christopher Waller, Fed Chair. We cannot dismiss the risk of unanchoring inflation expectations. We can't rule out hikes if inflation doesn't abate soon. Inflation to be driving force in policy decisions ahead. Rate cut no more likely than a hike as Fed's next move. Okay, so Waller, who's a dove, is not saying we're going to hike, but he's also saying we're definitely not thinking of cutting, which is a bit more neutral. 135.89 for Rock Lab. Where's the Cactus link? I'm putting it again in the chat. It is already pinned, but I'm putting it right there in the chat. Tesla 420, ServiceNow 103. Do we have any crazy macro data today besides Kevin? So I will not be able to stream Kevin Warsh live today because I will have to leave at 11. But it might not even start at 11, to be honest. They say 11, but it's probably going to start at like 12. So, oh, consumer sentiment. We just got it. Wow. I literally a minute ago, we got it when I asked it, do we have macro data? Okay, so consumer sentiment. Let's see. This is like 250 people they surveyed, but for some reason, the market always cares about this. Let's pull this up and see what we've got for consumer sentiment. All right, here we go.
It's no longer just a stock company. First, breaking economic data just crossing. Rick Santelli has it for us. Hi, Rick.
Hi, Mike, and indeed, not really good news here. These are University of Michigan Sentiment May final reads. They're adjusting the mid-month reads, and all of them are lower than expected and lower than our last look. Headline number moves from 48.2 to 44.8. That is another new all-time low going back to the 70s. And if we look at what's current conditions, same scenario, 45.8, new all-time low back to the 70s. If we look at expectations, from 48.5 mid-month to 44.1, you guessed it, new all-time low going back to the 70s. On the inflation, also not good news because it's going up. The one-year inflation from 4.5 to 4.8, that would be the warmest going back to, wow, let me think here. That's going back a ways, 4.8. You're going back to the 80s there, and 3.9 on the 5 to 10 year from 3.4. Here's the issue. Many believe, including myself, that there is definitely something going on here with regard to what's going on in the Mideast. It's not helping confidence, that's for sure. Normally, equity prices correlate very well with confidence, and equity prices continue to flirt with history to the upside. The other issue is, of course, that politics is seeping into some of these surveys. Real quickly here, we're basically unchanged on the day and week and 2 year. 10-year yields are down slightly on the day and the week. And make sure you check for early closes.
Okay, so based on these consumer numbers, which are pretty bad, to be honest, U.S. rate futures are now seeing Fed raising policy rate as soon as October. Dude, we're not hiking by October, bro. That's like, that's not happening. I mean, it might happen, but that's like, are we like October, bro? Are we actually like, that would be insane. That would be 3 months. We're going to get to a hike. You talk about a Q4 rally that's going to be a little interrupted. I think that would be a bit crazy to happen. But again, Street wanted 48.2. We came in at 44.8. 1 year inflation, Street wanted 4.5. We came in at 4.8. And then 5 year inflation, Street wanted 3.4. Again, we came in at 3.9. It's a couple hundred people. It's not the biggest survey in the world. Obviously, you're seeing that red candle on the S&P right there. A lot of these stocks getting red candle, AMD, Tesla, etc. But it is a conglomerate piece of analysis the Fed looks at in terms of how consumers are thinking of the economy. And I mean, I guess right now they're not thinking that everything is in the best situation. And, you know, we've been talking about the bifurcation economy. Like if you own assets, you're doing well. If you don't own assets, you know, if you don't have a very, very high paying job, obviously the economy is a bit worse for the majority of people. Having said that, the CapEx story is the story for the market. And when does that story actually affect the market? Well, when they hike rates, it could definitely affect the market. I mean, you get those mortgage rates up to 7.5%. Auto loans, credit card loans, which we're already seeing delinquencies. Look at NVIDIA, 216. Somehow the one company that is benefiting from all the CapEx is being affected by consumer confidence. But yeah, the hike wouldn't be good. Hike would not be good. That would be a little weird if we get it. Reddit 144, Fortinet still up. A lot of these names, I wonder if they go red. Nebbia is 213. That's officially getting it harder. Micron, that is still down 1.5, but that's nothing because that's 750. So who cares? But it's still red. Palantir is also going down. Here's the thing about Palantir and Tesla and all these amazing names. They have a high multiple still. And because they have a high multiple, if we raise rates, high beta growth, same thing with Rocket Lab, right? You're seeing a little red candle right there. Like the high multiples get hit really hard when the cost of capital goes up, even if their business will not be affected by the cost of capital. But still, I think the market might not love it. Dell 290. Dell just doesn't care. Dell keeps going up. ARM, is that up? ARM 300. Wow. ARM is now trading at a higher price of sales, by the way, than Palantir. So on a forward basis. I mean, Dell is, if Palantir was the barometer for being expensive, you got Dell and ARM that are starting to get there. Meta at 608, Qualcomm making that move up higher, 229. It was at 240, fell all the way to 200. Fell below 200. Now back above 229. Cerebras, is that green? Cerebras, wow, 260. This is the lowest we've seen it since IPO. So it was at 320 yesterday? 327 2 days ago? Now at 261. So that's a 338, I should say. 338 to 261 is your Cerebras drawdown. Adobe, that's flat. SoFi just went red. SoFi just went red. Wall Street Journal just said, we read Waller's speech. It's a very hawkish speech. While he doesn't think hikes are needed in the near term, he comes across as quite troubled by recent inflation developments. As the title of his speech is Policy Risks Have Changed. The bad thing about that is Waller is a dove. He's one of like 3 doves we have on the Fed. So for him to put out a hawkish, not calling for a hike, but still a hawkish speech is not what you want to see. Rubrik 6590, AppLovin 489.90 as well. So we're seeing a little bit more green right there. Let's get some updates on what Waller said.
Expectations become unanchored. Waller will say the labor market appears to be stabilizing, but inflation is not headed in the right direction, and that he is concerned higher energy prices may have a lasting effect. Comes on the heels, as you said earlier, Mike, of the minutes where the discussion really is, I think we're pricing in pretty much a full rate hike by March of next year.
Yes, it kind of builds toward that. It's maybe a 60% chance by December coming into this. Waller is kind of the bell cow here of the committee. In other words, he sort of seems to be able to migrate between hawkishness and dovishness, and therefore what he says when he's tacking in one direction is really taken to heart by the markets to a fair degree. So you did see yields pop a bit on those comments. Now, it still hasn't broken containment. 411 on 2s, 457 on 10s, actually 10s down a little bit. So a little bit of a flattening effect on the curve. So yeah, more acknowledging where the market has come than anything else, but it does show you what the committee setup is, waiting for Warsh when he gets into the job.
Yeah, the timing is really interesting. Obviously, speaking on the day that Warsh is getting sworn in about an hour and a half from now, at least that's the planning that we're working toward. It also kind of cuts this idea of the consensus gathering that Warsh will.
Yeah, there is no consensus anymore. If we didn't have the Iran war, I think we would be easy looking at 3 cuts this year. And Redwire still at 17, down from 1750, but still holding 17. Now, those are bigger questions than not. Micron getting hit, AMD 3 or ARM at 300, Palantir officially still going red. Sell in May doesn't mean that the market has to dump. It means take profits while things are hot, protect gains, and come back in September. That is a fair point. Technically, the sell-off tends to start in May with a sell in May, but this year it might not start in May if you think we're still going to get a drawdown. Yeah, look, valuations across the board are definitely up there. I don't think anyone can deny that. I don't think anyone can say the market looks incredibly cheap. Now, the market you can say that the earnings continue to justify market momentum, but I don't know if you can necessarily say the market itself is cheap. As long as we keep raising those earnings expectations, the market can continue to theoretically look cheap, which is what's happened, right? What's happened over the past 2 months, we've raised S&P 500 targets by about 15%, and that's why you've seen multiple expansion, along with the ceasefire and all that stuff. So we get an ugly correction in the summer? I don't know. But look, here's the thing. If we were to get an ugly correction in the summer, which who knows, maybe it happens. Isn't everyone buying the dip there? Like, I mean, unless we've topped out on the AI trade, if we see Nvidia back at 180 or AMD, back at 350 or Micron back at 500, isn't everyone just going to say, okay, cool, thanks for the free shares at a lower price? Like, I would imagine, unless the thesis on the AI trade is over, which I don't think is going to change by the end of August. So if we get a 10-15% drawdown by the end of August, like Tom Lee is calling for, I mean, stocks are going to get really cheap if you look at their forward earnings. I mean, Micron, after their next earnings, if they go down to 500, they're going to be trading at like 2 times earnings. Right now, they're barely at 10 times. So you'd imagine we would get some amazing opportunities if that happens, which makes me think it's not going to happen because the opportunities would be so juicy. Like, the opportunities in March were so juicy, but you had this overhang of thinking World War III was coming, which is why, there was so much fear, which is why that was a good opportunity, right? Buy when people are afraid. This time we would need to see something really bad happen. And I don't know what catalyst. I mean, the Fed chair being tested by the market, I'm like, sure, maybe that's it. But I feel like you need something different. Pinterest flips green after going red. Qualcomm is not up for any headline reason. This name has been teetering around 200 to 240 for basically the past couple of weeks. We already know the headlines, right? The core headline is data center chip, potentially, that they're coming out with in the context of CPUs, and then potentially working with OpenAI on a different hardware product. Like, those have been the two narratives that have re-rated the stock. And so if you believe in those narratives, you believe that chip is going to come out soon, you believe there's going to be a legit partnership with hyperscaler, then that narrative probably plays out to re-rate the stock even further from here. If you don't, then you probably stay on the sidelines. Qualcomm up 9, SPY at 746. Not even a 70% cut on Rocket Lab would make me buy. Yeah, look, I can't touch this stock at this valuation here. But this is one of those things, right? Like, if you didn't buy Rocket Lab at 70, it's hard to buy Rocket Lab at 135. But that also doesn't mean you have to, right? And if you did, congrats. Same thing with the memory names. If you bought SanDisk at 800, amazing. You don't have to sell at 1500, just like you don't have to sell Rocket Lab at 135. But for the new people that are not in a Rocket Lab or not in a SanDisk, even if it's going to go up, do they want to take the risk of buying it at these levels? And I think more often than not, the answer is probably no on that. Corning 191, that's going green. IBM still going up right here. ASTS, what a monster freaking move, dude. Faked out everybody for a month. I saw Space Mob was taking some shots on Twitter, bro. Our guy, Anna Panman, people were coming for his neck when this thing went to 65. I mean, people were calling him a scammer and all. I'm like, dude, this guy has dedicated so much research and alpha to this company since $2. It goes through a 15% drawdown, which is like, why the hell are you investing in growth stocks if you can't deal with a 15% drawdown? And, he stayed convicted because he wasn't going to change his mind off of a 15% haircut. And I think he definitely bought the dip. ASTS right there, 104, as that is up 8.1%. Nebius getting a little bit of a move up from 213 to 216. I thought you have Rocket Lab. Yeah, I do, but I just can't buy it at 135, dude. That's kind of crazy. But it's funny. I was talking to someone last night. It's kind of like saying, oh, I can't buy Palantir at like 90 in 2024. And then, we saw what happened. I wonder if saying, man, I can't touch Rocket Lab at 135. I wonder if that's like saying I can't touch Palantir at 90, or take any growth stock that already made a massive move and saying you can't touch it because it's like, all right, it's getting ridiculous. And what if it just gets crazier? And then, when it dips back to like 130 and like, that's your dip, like, which is literally happening with Palantir. 130 3 years ago, we would have been ecstatic. But because it's down from 180, we're like, oh, it sucks. What if that happens with Rocket Lab, which means in the meantime, there's a lot more room, for this thing to make a move. Nokia 1518, Applied Digital, that's down 4, CoreWeave, that's down 1. Where is Oracle? Oracle 193. Mama says, bro, I thought I was taking a massive risk on Rocket Lab when I rebought at 60. Yeah, I posted, I bought it. So many people in my comments. I think it's April 2nd I bought. So many people on. This is why you gotta zone out Twitter comments sometimes. Like, you buy a certain stock and people just like want to shit on you for whatever reason, or you sell a stock and people want to shit on you. It's like, you got to just completely zone out the comments. And if you're posting it for the sake of posting it for transparency, then that's fine. But, you know, think about it at 67, and so many comments were just like, how are you buying this overvalued piece of junk? But it's like, okay, maybe it is, but it gets so aggressive sometimes. You know, there's just so much noise, which is why conviction's everything. And that's why, you know, AMD has continued to outperform as well in the face of all these people saying there's no way this could outperform NVIDIA. Well, it did. 465 right there on AMD as that continues to go green. Iran, are we at 57? We are at 55. That's still down 3.8. The Nebius Bloom deal, I haven't looked at it too deeply, but just once again, Nebius is finding ways to just create more and more partnerships across the board. And it is very exciting seeing them legit try to become their own cloud versus a neo cloud. And, you know, I think that's why they're continuing to get the type of love that they're getting versus some of the other neo clouds. ServiceNow is getting hit 104 to 101. That's red. ABCL, that was up 15 yesterday. That's up another 4 today. Okay, you're getting some love on ABCL. And some of your space names right here. Oracle 193. 2-year treasury yield just hit a new session high at 4.123. Where's the 10-year after consumer confidence? 4.572. 4.572. The Nebius Bloom deal is bearish. Nebius, I've seen that take as well. I can understand why people think it's bearish. My perspective is, hey, they are trying to find a way to secure more energy. And yes, it might cost them more. They also did raise prices, which is why I think, you know, they got the bid back up from 185 by 30%. But yeah, I mean, they're just executing. Like, they're really just executing at a very, very high level. Navitas 14%. This thing's been through the ringer, dude. It went to 17 back in November, came all the way back down. Yeah, 17 in November, it came all the way back down to 7. Then it got to move up to 18, came back down, now it's at 28. You're seeing that continue to move. As Apple keep going up? Apple, wow, 309. Okay, usually when the market rotates into Apple, it's not really bullish, to be honest. Like, on the greenest of green days, you don't see Apple getting a heavy, heavy move. And so I wonder what the market's getting a little concerned about to be buying Apple here. You would think they'd be buying more Google after that I.O. event, which I know Google's technically more valuable than Apple, but it's only by a little bit, dude. Google is at 4.67, Apple's at 4.54. And if you ask me what I want to own for the next 5 years, is undoubtedly Google. So it's interesting the streets racking it up here. I would imagine they're thinking WWDC is going to be really good, the Worldwide Developers Conference. And I kind of think it's going to be a flop unless they actually introduce Agentic Siri, which I don't think they're going to do. So I don't know what else they're going to put out there to get the streets. It's not going to be the foldable phone. They usually do that in September, which I also think is going to be a flop. So I don't know. But the street's buying it. Apple right there, 309. As that one continues to get some love. ServiceNow at 101. What is the Captain Jack WhatsApp feed again? I will link it right here in the chat. It's cactusjack.com. And again, if you want to support, you can pay the $5 a month tier. It's free for everyone indefinitely. Always will be free, but if you want to support, there's a button on the link to support. Admit you're an Apple hater. First of all, I own more Apple products than I could imagine, dude. I have like 9 different Apple products in my house. 2, it's in my ETF. I do have it in my ETF, although it's not going to help with Matt continuing to crush with Rock Lab. And then look, I mean, I think Apple's still going to be a winner long term. Obviously, I'm just curious why today the street's deciding to just continue taking its all-time highs. You know, the earnings were a couple weeks ago. The earnings were good, but now this one's just continuing to move. Matt's at 67%. I am at 58%. Steve's at 40. Tanner's at 10. Chris is at 28. So Rock Lab and ASTS. Matt has both of those. Wow, look at that dude. He's up 4x on Rock Lab. This thing was $26 back in June of last year. That was after the freaking tariff drawdown. That's crazy. Absolute multi-bagger. Apple's going more for the ecosystem of phone competition-wise. Yeah. Well, the thing about Apple is that, again, like they have the distribution. So like when Agentic Siri does come out or whatever model they want to plug into, they don't need to spend the CapEx. We all know the story. So I think the thesis makes sense. And, you know, at 249, 250, obviously the street liked it. I don't think it's necessarily overvalued as the multiple up there. Yeah, I don't think it's overvalued because it's freaking Apple, and you know you always give a premium to Apple. But street taking Apple to all-time highs isn't always bullish. It's usually them being afraid of something, and so they want to hide out in Apple. It's happened many times over the course of 5 years, and like Nvidia's down today, right? Like one could argue the street's selling off Nvidia to buy Apple, which is almost them admitting. Not really, but them kind of saying, you know, we don't want to be part of the CapEx trade. We want to be part of something that just benefits from the CapEx, which in this case would be Apple. I think that might be the same reason why photonics and memory is down as well. The Compound just came out with a podcast, Josh Brown's podcast. The title is Why Memory is a Bubble, but NVIDIA Isn't. Interesting. Okay, so Mamba, you got an hour of 30 minutes of dealing with the memory FUD from that podcast that just came across my feed right now. Navitas, that's up 14% still. Yes, Rocket Lab did get the the Space Force contract last night. And that's probably the reason it's also pumping up. Lovin 487. MP, that's up 4. You had the director buy some shares. Gold is down to 4,400. Is silver down with it? Silver's down as well, 75. So that silver run lasted for like a few days before it got hit. The Asia-Pacific region has huge potential to absorb more U.S. exports. Trump sees Asia-Pacific economic cooperation as an important dimension to our trans strategy. APEC will represent an enormous market for American goods, potentially 1.5 trillion, is what the administration has to say. S&P still flat. Where is BTC? Bitcoin is down. If we lose 76, that's going to be a little ugly. Tesla's making a move higher here. The Tesla SpaceX story, once again, continues to be more and more exciting. And the more I read into it, the more it seems like it's definitely going to happen. We just don't know exactly when. But it looks like it's going to be a thing. And when it does become a thing, it's just going to be a lot easier for Elon to, to navigate all the market cap elements of this. Dell keeps going. Wow, hit 294, dude. Okay, so Dell's, we got to look at some of these Dell multiples here. Price to sales is 2. They usually have a low price to sales because they don't have good margins. Price to earnings on a trailing 12 is 35 times. What is the average PE people pay for Dell? I actually don't know. Average PE is around 19.5. That's your 5-year historical average. So you're trading at basically double, a little bit more than double your historical PE. So 35 might not seem like a lot, but for a company with, barely any operating margins, it is a lot. So it's definitely a premium they're getting. And then ARM right there at 301 as well. Well, once again, everyone gets love in the semiconductor race outside of NVIDIA. It's not even something we can complain about anymore. There's no like, at this point, I think, I think Chris made a good point last night as well. Even if you're looking at NVIDIA to 250, that's not a lot of upside from here, right? So if you're entering NVIDIA here, it's definitely not a lot of upside. Obviously, if you bought this thing, years ago, every dollar really helps and is awesome. And that's the benefit of, just holding. But for new entrants, and the reason this matters is because we're talking about net new buyers of the stock, right? That's what we're always talking about when a stock needs to go up. Who is the net new person who's going to take my bags off my hand? And if someone's like, well, my upside's 250, even though every price target's now, the average price target for NVIDIA, let me get the exact number. I bet you it's 290. It is, let's see. It's got to be up there now. Why is my tip ranks not working? Okay, I don't know why tip ranks isn't working, but I would imagine it's closer to 300. That's way better than 250, but still, you might not see people to be excited. GameStop is asking shareholders to approve a massive increase in its authorized share count as the video game retailer pursues an acquisition of eBay. They want, wow. Oh my goodness. They want, so right now GameStop has 448 million shares outstanding. Fear and Greed is at 60. They want 2.5 billion shares to potentially be outstanding. By the way, NVIDIA's price target, $299. So basically 300. I mean, I guess the GME bulls will just let it happen because they've constantly let themselves get diluted. And maybe this time it's for a real legit reason with eBay, even though eBay doesn't want to be bought. I told you guys that story, right? I knew someone who had 10,000 shares of Palantir at a $7 average who sold it in 2024 to buy GameStop. He just full ported. And he sold it at 18 and sold it at 7. He sold it at like 18 or 20 bucks. Palantir got to 18 or 20. This was back in May of 24 and he sold it for GameStop. I haven't talked to him in a while, but I mean, I only bring up that story to say this company, GameStop, this like, I know all stocks are a cult, but this cult in particular really, 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 really inspired people. I don't know how it inspired people, Carp, Western values, that's a different type of inspiration. GameStop, I guess Roaring Kitty is your inspiration, but like it inspired people to let go of real companies with amazing fundamental value. And no one knew Palantir would do what it did to the level that it did. But the point is, like even the idea of swapping Palantir for GameStop, get a $7 average on that thing, dude. I mean, it's crazy. So now you got GameStop right there down about 2.5%. Qualcomm 236. This is up 10. I don't see any headline on Qualcomm. Again, I think this is more option flow that already happened 2 weeks ago. We were talking about the numbers on Qualcomm's option flow. So you might start to see a little bit more momentum in the stock if the option flow starts to reflect that. And again, the headlines, we talked about it. CPU, data center chip. Maybe the street thinks it's closer than not. 236 right there. As that goes green. Service now, red again. Service later. That is correct. Palantir also red. What do you think about Dumb Money? I was interested in the movie because obviously, like, I care about the stock market, but the movie was bad, dude. Like, it was like an actual bad movie. Like, it was bad acting. All that's like, I watched it because I care about the stock market. But if you weren't into the stock market and it turned on, like, I feel like you'd be so bored. And the movie itself was just so bad. I don't think people would have enjoyed it. ASTS 105.40. As that's trying to continue. Mitch, you still have Fastly? Yes. So Fastly and Akamai, again, they made a pretty dramatic move right here. And then Akamai had dilution and you had the deal that was announced. Same thing with Corning, right? They had their deal announced. So for now, the catalyst on the CDNs is not only agentic inference, but the deals that they're going to announce for agentic inference. Again, Akamai, 1.8 billion, you're thinking that's likely with Anthropic. The reason those CDN plays aren't moving like the CPU plays are moving is because obviously the CPU plays just got a big pump by Jensen, right? Like what Jensen said, Vero is going to do 20 billion this year alone. I think the entire market was like, okay, ARM's going to get a bunch of royalties. Qualcomm's going to probably have a CPU. AMD is obviously going to get re-rated. Intel's going to sell CPUs. And so Jensen took some shots in a subtle way to the other CPU companies. But those are the names that I think have kind of taken the liquidity in regards to the AI trade. Micron still flat on the day, red by about 1%, 755. And then your photonics names are still also getting hit. Lumentum 943. As that is red. Are you out of UNH spreads? Yeah, I mean, I was in those for like 2 weeks. I think I made like $700 on those. I did not, if I had kept them, UNH those would have done well for me, but it was like a $10,000 position. It wasn't a massive position. UNH was on a really good trajectory. It was pushing 400. The problem is Berkshire sold. And once that came out, people got upset. But I don't think that affects their fundamental story. I mean, they increased their earnings projections pretty decisively. I mean, people thought they were only going to do $14 a share, and they're not going to be only doing $14 a share anymore. So Oscar right there up 1%. So UNH, I think, is your classic mean reversion recovery play. It's playing out. You know, the stock got to 230 at one point. Probably deserves to be closer to 420, 450. But this one is more of a steady mover. ARM 307. Wow. Okay, I guess the market is thinking every single CPU that NVIDIA sells, ARM is going to get massive royalties on it, which, yes, ARM will get royalties, but I mean, every dollar for ARM, they're making another $100 million here. So I guess the street just thinks a lot of CPUs means a lot of royalties, which it does. But then again, how much, how many royalties really are going to be baked in to actually get the market cap to be justified by those royalties? 307, 330 billion for ARM. They're doing about 8 billion in revenue this year. Corning 193, Qualcomm 238, as NVIDIA continues to get pummeled. SoFi also going down. You got Rubio. Let's see what he is saying. Let's pull him up right here. He's speaking at some conference right now about Iran.
This is what I hope for, and this is the point I made, is we all would love to see an agreement with Iran in which the straits are open and they abandon their nuclear ambitions and so forth, their nuclear weapons ambitions. That's what we'd all hope for, and that's what we're going to continue to work on, and that's what work is ongoing even as I speak to you now in that regard. But we also have to have a plan B, and plan B is, what if Iran refuses to open the straits? What if Iran decides we refuse to open the straits, we're going to own the straits, and we're going to charge tolls for it? Okay, at that point, something has to be done about it. And I would argue that there are countries represented here today that are more deeply impacted by this than even the United States is. The hope there is.
Okay, Rubio saying the same things that he's been saying about what they want to do with Iran. Rocket Lab, she is literally going to the moon. This is every day, folks. Every dip being bought heavily. 138.03, as that is up 10% right there. My goodness. ARM's own CPU is powering Meta's data center. This would be like if TSMC started making their own chips and not just for other companies. Okay, that's a fair point. I think it then comes down to valuation, right? Like, the thing is, ARM was $100 in January. So every bullish thing I've heard on it, now it's worth 3 times that. Is that enough to be baking in what the street is pricing in? And the big narrative change on ARM was when they said they were going to quintuple the revenues from $5 billion a year to basically $20 billion a year, or quadruple. So they were going to go from 5 to 20 annually. That was a big move, and that took the stock from about 103 to like 190. Then you had the CPU story with Intel and AMD that I think got the stock up to 250, and now you've got NVIDIA's commitment to CPUs in the age of agentic inference, and I think that's the story right here. And that story is enough to get the street to continue to be excited as ServiceNow falls below 100 on the day. Let me check the resistance for Rocket Lab at 140 because it looks like she wants to get there. Are you trimming Rocket Lab every time I think of doing it? I remember the SpaceX IPO. 140 is... It's only 40,000 shares, guys. It's not a lot. It's not a lot, 40,000 shares. Look, I bought those 1,000 shares of Rocket Lab at 67 as a trade. And I already have Rocket Lab as a long-term investment. So I'm kind of thinking, like, what if those shares just become part of the long-term investment? I mean, that's what you say when you get too greedy, to be honest. But I'm kind of like, dude, it's working. Like, sometimes you don't break what's working. And it's working, If it was really a trade, I should have sold at 100, but it just blasted through 100 on earnings, and I was like, okay, I guess we're here. So I think same thing with ASTS. I mean, that was supposed to be a trade, but now I feel like, given it's gone through hell over the past month and came back, it's kind of like, all right, you just leave it and see what SpaceX does. Now, SpaceX might be the literal top for the space names if the IPO doesn't go well. But even if they dip, Rocket Lab dips back to 115, I'm not going to care that much. I don't think it should be at 140, but I'm not complaining. Like, it is what it is. I feel like you have to manage your like valuation side of your brain. That's like, okay, this is kind of not making sense, with the side of your brain that's like, but this is what the market wants. And it is what it is. If the market wants it, the market wants it. Elf right there, 53, that lost the entire pump. Take 2 down 7. Wow. Feels like Street's bearish on freaking Grand Theft Auto right here. Redwire still up 15. Are we above 17 here? We are 1769. That's a new all-time high, right? No, that's a new intraday high. 52-week high is 22. Yeah, GG stock draft. That's over. That is over. Nokia, almost high of day, 1525, basically there. We need to close above 15 on Nokia for this one too, because it hit 15 last Friday as well, and then closed at like 1430. So close above 15 would be very nice to see. Quantum continuing to move. Is anyone just buying it to follow Trump on the quantum trade? Like following him on Intel? Is anyone just saying, you know what, I'm gonna follow it and I don't care what price it is? INFQ up another 23% today. Rigetti up 20% as well. I mean, D-Wave's all-time high is 46. It's not that far away. $30 just broke. Last time it was at 30, guys, was January 15th. So we're talking about a 5-month breakout here. And then 40 would be almost a year-long breakout. Rocket Lab 138.87. What's the float that's short on D-Wave? That is a good question. Let's see. 15%. That's a decent amount for a squeeze. Rigetti's probably in the same rate. BTQ, that one's also up. Rigetti's at 15. Yep. BTQ. Zandu, that's up 22%. Zandu diluted today again, but that stock up 5. They fell from freaking 35 to 9. Wow. This was when I was in Chicago around that time. 35 to 9 on dilution. And now back to 15. OSS is, I don't see any headline on OSS. This one, I'm feeling a little January effect happening in May, a little small cap beta momentum. Do I see any headline on OSS? Yeah, there's a naval warfare article. Naval Special Warfare Command combatant craft set to receive upgrades. The upgrades are expected to include the addition of the open system architecture to facilitate the integration and aggregation of sensors. That is not directly OSS, but that's definitely tied. One could argue it's tied to OSS. That could be your reason right there, because that's up 11.2. Or it could just be a technical breakout. That's also fair. That's also fair. BlackBerry breaking above 750, 740. Not 750 yet, but 739. Nokia 1526. ASTS, wow, 106, dude. ASTS was at freaking 125 in January. This is what I mean. Rocket Lab, ASTS, OSS, BlackBerry. You got a lot of these smaller names that are catching the bid. Rocket Lab, here you go. We got 50 cents from 140. That's going to be crazy, dude. 140 on this is going to actually be crazy. Peter Beck is helping out a lot of our ports this year. Trump Mobile confirms it's exposed customers' personal data, including phone numbers and home addresses. Chris Walker, a spokesperson for the Trump-branded phone maker, told TechCrunch that the company is investigating the exposure and has not found evidence that content or financial information spilled online. I forgot the Trump phone was still a thing, but I guess it is. I guess it is. OSS 18, BlackBerry up 11, Nokia up 8% now. Cadence, that is also, yep, up 5%. Guys, I think the Rocket Lab thing's about to happen. Feels like Rocket Lab's about to happen, folks. Feels like it might happen here. We are close. 139.64. Micron. Okay, Micron's about to flip green. That would be joining the rest of these names today. NVIDIA still low, but there's your green candle that just came in. Intel 122. IGV kind of green, but not really too much. Why is Rocket Lab up? Again, they got a $90 million contract last night from the Space Force and good Neutron launch. And I guess you can attribute that to be a reason. Apple, 4.5 trillion market cap now for the first time. Why is crowd up? I don't think there's anything specific. Cybersecurity is just in trend. And we talked about Mythos the past couple of days. That's been important. Fortinet earnings, that was important. But yeah, it's a little bit of a weird Friday. Like Take-Two down 7 is weird. Coinbase down 3. Interesting. Robinhood was just up. Now it's down. Photonics Play is coming back with memory. AOI was below 170. Now it's back up. Financials kind of up today, but you got a lot of random names getting a little bit more of a bid. Intuit's up a little bit. Workday, that was up 7. Now that's down. Or that's up 3. But in general, I mean, you know, you get a $90 million contract from the Space Force Street. We'll take that seriously. Why is Joby pumping? I do not know. Why is Joby pumping? Joby and Archer both, are they getting up there? I shorted Quantum. Which Quantum? What's the Quantum ETF, by the way? Like, isn't there a... What's the Quantum? There's a Quantum ETF for everything, I think, for all the names. QTUM, yeah, that one. 153.89, that's up 3%. No longer sell in May, but it could be sell in June and go to your room. I mean, what are people thinking? Are people thinking, like, put in the chat, are people thinking it's time to short, sell, take profits, get the hell out? Micron just flipped green. It is very interesting that NVIDIA is not participating here in the midst of a lot of these names going up. Say, even Google, you would think Google would participate a little bit. Nope. Iren's still down 2. Microsoft, that's been down. Palantir getting hit again. SPY 746. Rocket Lab had a good launch this morning. Danny says, I opened a ton of shorts going to double down after the Iran deal is announced. Okay, so you think it's going to be a sell the news on the Iran. You know, I'm a little split on that. Because, okay, so I would agree that it's a sell the news. I would agree with that. But the reason I hesitate to think it'll be a legit sell the news is because oil theoretically could go down substantially after he announced the deal. And if that happens, I kind of still think it could be a sell the news, but I also still think the markets are just going to rip. They're going to be happy that oil is down. Now, you could say a lot of that's priced in, which I don't think anyone would argue with, but because we don't have earnings for another couple of weeks, right? So for the next real big pump to happen, you know, we're going to need Google and Microsoft and Meta to put up all these crazy numbers again. That's going to happen in July as Bitcoin continues to fall. But I wonder what would really cause that drawdown that you know, people are saying. This is Tom Lee yesterday on why he still thinks it's going to be a bit ugly in the summer.
Thinking could happen, right?
That's right, Scott. I think we had like what Ed Yardini would call a rolling bear market and things like Mag 7, and of course last year in energy, but in software, etc. But I think later this year the market is going to confront a few things. You know, one of course is just your typical midterm seasonality, you know, the uncertainty into that. The second is that there is a day of reckoning coming because the inventory of petroleum products is short and not being alleviated anytime soon. And the third is we probably have some concerns later as these IPOs come, SpaceX, OpenAI, et cetera, that there's a lockup expiration later. So I think that's a supply overhang. So I think that dynamic comes to play later this year. But in the meantime, I think investors are focusing on AI fundamentals, and you know, there's a real shortage, and stocks that are working are the ones that are selling something that's scarce. So,
AKA, you know, memory, things that are supply constrained, those have done the best. I don't know, man. For us to get a really ugly drawdown, I just think so many people are convinced now of the AI build out story that it's not going to be people running for the hills. It's going to be people that are going to be so excited to, want to partake in the overall ecosystem. And so those dips would just get bought so quickly that, like, if ARM from 311 fell to 280, you'd have dip buyers. Like, does it really need to fall to 200 or be a really ugly dip to get people excited? Maybe not, unless there's a bigger macro issue. But like, if we resolve the war, the biggest macro issue I think is kind of resolved, which as a byproduct gets rid of the inflation issue, at least to an extent. I don't know. The bear case has got to be a little deeper. I don't know if people just say we're overvalued here, which we could, you could technically make that argument, but is that enough? Especially when earnings are growing the way they are. Apple 309. Datadog just hit all-time highs. Wow. Look at that. They had a great earnings. The earnings was right there, 144 to 190, and then they just continued to get re-rated. Nokia, maybe a little breakout today. Maybe we touched 1540. It looks like we'll get the close above 15 today, hopefully, if this doesn't get rejected. If so, that is going to continue to be a bit more bullish. A lot of macro could come home to roost. I agree with you. Look, I'm as nervous as anyone about the different issues we have in macro. And to be honest, with a lot of small caps up today, it's not really the most bullish. It's one of those things that's like, okay, you're just having a lot of high beta rally in the face of things that aren't the best macro-wise. But the big guys are taking a little bit of a breather. And I don't think that's horrible either. SoFi 1549. That one's still down 1. Fastly down 3. Tesla 428. This was at 450 last week. I mean, Tesla has not really been part of the whole semi story either, although they do have a deal with Samsung for a bunch of chips, and theoretically Elon wants to be building his own chip soon. But I don't think the market's giving him the benefit of the doubt yet on that story. Enphase 63, that's still up 2%. Mid, would you sell 150 covered calls on Rock Lab for next Friday? I think this market is, I don't know. I mean, if you're okay with those shares getting called away, then sure. If not, probably not. I think covered calls on any of the space names into a SpaceX IPO. Dude, again, based on what I was researching last night, the SpaceX IPO oversubscribed demand is just, I mean, this thing could literally go to 3 trillion. Now, I'm not going to take the risk of buying it at the IPO, hoping that it goes up to 3 trillion quickly. But the point is, if it does, I just think the space names are probably up that day. And maybe that's the day where you really start to consider selling. Now, the opposite thing is the IPO fails, which I just find it hard to believe, dude. There are too many institutional... the other reason I find it hard to believe is that after 15 days, SpaceX is going to get into the NASDAQ and the S&P. It might be 20 days, it might be 30 days, but based on what I've been reading, they are fast-tracking the index process. So they will have plenty of institutional flows that are going to be just owners of SpaceX by proxy of the fact that they have to. So I don't think this market's going to let it fail. It's too important of a company to get hit. Apple 309. Matt says, so I'm buying a new chain, but do I buy a new watch or a Porsche first? You know, that's a very important question that we need to help Mr. Matt Money with. It's a very important question. A Porsche or a chain? I've always wanted like an iced out chain, you know, like the ones like the rappers they wear in the music videos. Like I've always wanted one of those. But then I think about it and I'm like, that's obnoxious. Like that would be so like, so first of all, I can't afford that. Second of all, it's like, that's kind of obnoxious. Like, where would I wear that chain to? Where would I wear it? Like, I'm not going to wear it on the stream. I'm going to go outside and wear it and have someone take it off me. Like, you literally would just buy it to look at it. So I would go Porsche, Matt. I would go Porsche. By the way, this gold chain that I have right here, this is not even, I didn't even buy this. This is from my grandmother. This is not even mine. So that's the only reason I'm wearing this. It's from her. It's not like I went out and like actively tried to buy a gold chain. UNH 388. That's up. Qualcomm still moving 11%. 240. It did touch 241. That was the key level that it broke out from or got rejected at last time. So we got to see. You would wear it on the podcast, dude. That would be funny, wearing it on the podcast. I think you guys will enjoy today's podcast. It's a CEO you all know, and let's just say he loosened up on the pod. He was cursing, he was laughing. When I mean cursing, I mean he was like legit saying the F word. Like he was like, he was I think he felt very comfortable, and we had a good time. Some great clips. I think you guys will enjoy it. Think you will enjoy it. Was it Ryan Cohen? It was not Mr. Ryan Cohen. I don't know if we would be able to get 2 words out of Ryan Cohen if we have Ryan Cohen. Steve did not tell you guys. Steve told me to not fall for it when you guys would say that he told him. Let's hear from an early SpaceX investor and see what they're thinking as we get into this IPO.
2008. Justin, thanks for taking the time. I know that you say this is a high conviction investment for us. I can imagine you feel that way having invested in 2008 and reading about the potential valuation in an IPO. What makes this such a high conviction investment for you? I believe you think it's kind of more than just rockets.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me here. I mean, we've been excited about this business for almost 20 years now. And as you mentioned, we think this is a lot more than just a launch business. They've leveraged that launch business to build Starlink, which is the largest constellation anyone's ever operated in space before. I mean, they've got almost 10,000 satellites, which is a crazy number, really, when you think about it. And they've done that to provide internet service. They're doing that to provide direct service to cell phones. And then now they're talking about, building data centers and what that can do to support, AI. And we're really excited about what this company can build over the next 20 years, because really as exciting as the last 20 have been, I think when you look at the rate that they're building products and businesses, it's accelerating. So in many respects, the next 20 years will be greater than the last 20.
All right, so that's kind of the same story all of these VCs have given on SpaceX, that the potential of it just continues to be super, super exciting, which I would agree with. And it comes down to how much people want to pay for it. Meta 609.71. NVIDIA 217. Let's look at the heat map for today. I think consumer confidence was the only big thing. I mean, we'll have the Fed chair thing. Again, I won't be able to stream it, and I definitely don't think it's going to start in 6 minutes. It's probably going to take a while before they go live. But it's there you are, relatively green outside of NVIDIA and a couple of the large caps. I wonder if it's market moving. Like, today's not a day with a ton of different updates. That Iran thing in the morning, again, it got oil to go down, but we don't know if it's actually true or enough to be true. Waller says, I have not spoken to Warsh about policy. Waller says it's crazy given recent data to be talking about rate cuts in the near future. Wow. Quote, it's crazy to be talking about rate cuts. And this guy's like, look, I'm a dove, but I'm not an idiot. He's saying there is no way we can think about rate cuts. Recent labor and inflation data turned me on my rate bias as of now. Okay, that's what you got by Waller. What did Kathy buy? She's been buying a lot of Cerebrus. What did she buy last night? Last night she bought Bullish. Interesting, dude. She sold a little bit of TSM. So she's buying the beaten up crypto names right now. And she bought like 400,000 shares of Cerebrus the other day. Yeah, I don't get it, dude. I don't freaking get Cerebrus at all. I don't understand it. They've got one OpenAI contract. That's like, even if you think inference is super important, like, I mean, now granted, NVIDIA's 5 trillion, Cerebrus is 55 billion. So if NVIDIA goes up, maybe Cerebrus goes up as a proxy and Cerebrus goes to 100 billion. Like, maybe it's just that simple of a thesis. But at least now it's at 250, whereas over the past 2 weeks it was at freaking 340. So at least you have somewhat of a discount here. But I would have to really run through the numbers and see what it looks like. What's happening at 12? Most likely, they said 11, but it's probably going to be 12 or maybe 11:30. Trump will be swearing in Kevin Warsh. So he'll be giving a speech. Do people remember Trump's speech on JPOW? When he swore him in? Little did he know he was, not going to like this guy years later. But he was going to be getting the DOJ to prosecute him. But this was back in 2017.
Jay to be our next federal chairman. And so important because he will provide exactly that type of leadership. He's strong, he's committed, he's smart. And if he is confirmed by the Senate, Jay will put his considerable talents and experience to work leading our nation's independent central bank. Thank you. Thank you very much.
He's strong, smart, and independent. An average day in 2025 for Trump's Twitter was, this guy is stupid and too late. How many people think that happens with Warsh, bro? I don't think it'll happen, but then again, what if it does? It's just going to be comical. At that point, people are going to be like, all right, 2 Fed chairs in a row that this guy had a sour relationship with. Maybe it's not the Fed chair. Maybe it's Trump. But yeah, that relationship did not work out. GameStop still down. ARM's up 5. ARM just keeps moving. This is an all-time high. All-time high for ARM. PE forward is 255 times for ARM. Wow, dude, ARM is approaching Tesla's PE. Okay, Tesla's still at 344 on the forward. ARM is at 350 on the trailing. On the forward, it gets a little better, 370 on the trailing. But you're up there. Tesla, 429. Tesla almost 430. Well, down below 400 a couple days ago. Now almost at 430. Someone just bought 1.5 million of calls on Tesla, 427.50 strike June 5th. So you got some of that option flow coming in for Tessie. There it is, 430. Why is Hood down today? Probably because of crypto and BTC. I mean, Bitcoin getting nuked right there, down about 2%. I mean, not really down that bad, but it was breaking 81 last week. So that's a reversal that the street's not happy about. ASML. I've been looking at ASML a lot more. I don't know if it's exciting to buy it at this level, because the only way you'd buy it is if you assume it can double. Like, you can't get into ASML for 10 or 20%. Like, there's too many other plays out there. But ASML is a monopoly, and they're very safe, in my opinion. But your risk reward is not that exciting buying a $627 billion company, unless you believe there's a pathway to get to $1 trillion. And some of the preliminary research and looking at EUVs and what Elon's trying to do with them has led me to get deeper into ASML. Street's price target is only 10% higher than what it is right today, 1791. So the street does not think this is a $1 trillion company. Kind of makes you wonder, though, if Micron can get to $1 trillion, ASML is not selling a commodity. And I understand that the commodity is way more in demand, but ASML is incredibly important when it comes to the overall supply chain for semis with lithography. So if Micron can get to $1 trillion, why can't ASML get there? Now, again, Micron's going like crazy, and they have a lot of more pricing power. But the sustainability of ASML's earnings should also be pretty damn strong. Apple right there. Wow, 310 on Apple. 310 on Apple here. My goodness. So Apple and ARM, interestingly enough, ARM works with Apple and Qualcomm, which also works with Apple. So you got the trifecta of companies. There you go, Qualcomm 241. I actually don't think that's a coincidence that Apple, Qualcomm, and ARM are moving up together and hitting all-time highs today. It actually seems like there's a reason the street's putting all three of them together. But those are your big, big, big winners for today. Tesla still 430. SPY 746 right here. You guys heard the cops outside? Yeah, dude. It's like every hour. Like, I don't live in New York, and I moved away from New York to not have to deal with the noise, and I randomly have to hear sirens every other hour. Give yourself up. T1 down 5, Lunar up 8, Enphase up 3, and Rock Lab got rejected right at 139.76. But looks like 140 is obviously on the way. Shopify, we still at 107. We are down. Shopify's in the doghouse with all the other software names as well, but at least it's not, getting hit well below 90 like it almost did 2 weeks ago. Very high quality company. The market's got to believe that SaaS is not dead. I really do think we are going to wake up a year from now and the SaaS names are not going to be dead. And the market's after the I feel like Anthropic and OpenAI have to IPO. The market has to see all their numbers. They have to compare it to the legacy software companies and then ask themselves, do they really think agentic commerce will kill Shopify? That's growing 35% year over year, a record amount of GMV growth. If that's not the case, Shopify is going to get a bid. Maybe it's not today, but same thing with ServiceNow, Salesforce. We just saw the re-rating in cybersecurity. Doesn't sound crazy to see that happening there, which means, once again, going back to the conversation of yesterday, the people who bought AMD when everyone hated it, they ended up winning. You don't get the massive reward unless you take the risk of buying it when it's hated. Shopify, IGV, ServiceNow, they're all hated right now. You can either chase or buy the thing that's hated. Now, having said that, the thing that's winning might keep winning for the next few years, given where we are in the AI cycle. And so that's the nuance of this market. Reddit getting wrecked again, down 5.5%. I mean, this is ugly, but it is a software name. It still is a software name. What do you think about quantum names? I've got to do a lot more research on quantum. I got to understand why the US is investing in them, try to understand deeper elements to their moat. I also wonder if they're going to dilute. I mean, their stocks are up a lot, so wouldn't it be crazy for them to raise some money here? But even if they do, I don't think that's going to affect the stocks too much. D-Wave just under 30. I think the simple thesis could be you're trailing the US government, and that could be enough. And then you just have to be okay with it falling 10, 15% randomly. That honestly might be enough of a thesis. Maybe it's not a massive position in the portfolio, but if it's something that you're like, all right, I'm just not going to touch this, and I'm going to hope in 5 years that the US invested for a reason in these names, then boom. That might be part of the way to allocate. Rock Lab 137, Qualcomm now 241. Yeah, the forum from Facebook app is what I think is getting Reddit as well, where this one's getting hit. Okay, guys, that is it for me. I got to get out of here. Thank you all for being here. We'll be back on the market close. We will see what happens with Kevin Warsh when he is officially sworn in. That will probably happening in about an hour, and we'll get some clips of that for the market close. We will have the new CEO podcast on Basis Points dropping during the market close. I think people will enjoy it. And I think that's pretty much it for today. No other crazy macro news besides Kevin Warsh. NVIDIA is red as always. Some of these software names in fintech are kind of trying to get back up there. But really, it's Qualcomm, Apple, and ARM that are getting most of the love today. All right, let's do word of the day, and then we'll be out of here. Again, cactusjack.com officially launched, the same terminal that I use every single day. Everyone now has access through via WhatsApp. If you guys have any questions, concerns, ways to make it better, please let me know. Cactus will try to make it better as well. If you want to support, $5 a month, you can pay to support. If not, you can still join. And every day in your WhatsApp, get what I think is really the best feed of curated news every single day, and should be able to get access to that. So that's what we got. All right, 9 days in a row, folks. We're going for 9 days in a row on the word of the day. 9 days. No show on Monday, right? Yes. We'll have a podcast out, but no show on Monday because the market will be closed on Monday. Oh, so that means no future show either. Okay. All right. So market close. If I don't see you on the market close, have a great weekend. Enjoy your Memorial Day. But if not, then I will see you on the market close. Okay. Word of the day. This is either acerbic or acerbic. Sharp, bitter, or cutting in tone or style. His acerbic commentary made the interview entertaining but brutal. It's acerbic. It's not acerbic. There's no way it's acerbic. It's definitely acerbic. There's no way it's acerbic. Acerbic sounds like the ultimate. Acerbic sounds reasonable. See, if I was trolling, I would say acerbic. It's not acerbic. This shit is acerbic.
Acerbic.
10 days or 9 days in a row.
Acerbic.
That's what I'm talking about, bro. That's what I'm talking about. We're in a different league. We're in a different freaking league, baby. Different league. Oh, yeah, we probably will have the future show Monday. Okay, so I'll see you guys on Monday night, most likely. All right, so even if I don't see you guys Sunday night or Monday morning, we'll probably see you Monday night. This is not the real Amit. It's a new world, man. It's a new world. Again, from Cactus, thank you again, everyone, for your kind words and encouragement. Thank you all for the super chats. I will make sure they get to Cactus. Cynthia, thank you for the $20 super chat. Appreciate it. Mamba, thank you for the super chat as well. Deeply, deeply appreciate it. Jagadish, thank you for becoming the channel member. Rusty, thank you for the $50 super chat. Beepster, thank you for this as well. Cactus, thank you for supporting Amit all this while. The show would have been undoubtedly worse without you to the extent possible. Please cut Amit's rants off at the 15-minute mark. We went on for like an hour yesterday, which is crazy. So, yeah, Cactus is going to have to cut me off. Thank you for that, Beepster. Thank you, Trish the Dish, for the $14 super chat. Leanne, thank you for the super chat. Candle in the Wind. I love that name. Thank you for the super chat as well. Thanks to Cactus for your help on the channel. Prayers to you. God bless. Deeply, deeply appreciate it. Russell, thanks for the super chat. Thank you so much. Sounds similar to me. I was medically induced. Cactus, I salute you. No cancer. Dystonia, amazing bravery. Deeply appreciate it. I will make sure these get to Cactus. And yeah, thank you guys. Means a lot. And hopefully this is a cool project, dude. Hopefully it's a cool project. I think getting the news is not easy. And, you know, a lot of people have to find different ways to get the news, but this will be a cool way for everyone to have access to it every single day. So far, we have about 3,500 people that have signed up in the past hour, which is incredible. So, yeah, I think he deeply appreciates it. 3,700 now. And let's see how far I can go. See how we can build this thing up. And hopefully more and more people just get more accurate real-time news and everyone gets the ability to access it for free. Yes, so we basically have our own terminal. And we'll see what features we can add to make this even better. Honestly, Cactus himself is like enough to make this legit. I really do think it's competitive with the other terminals that are out there, especially because they're using AI and he's like a human that's just on top of it. But yeah, everyone has access to it, and on earnings, everyone should be able to use this to see what they want to do. If it's not working, refresh the link. It should easily be working. It's a very simple website that just links you to WhatsApp, and you should be able to access all of it. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys on the market close, and we'll keep going from there. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.